The staff girl just knew that she called Jin, but she didn't pick up the phone. But since it was already time to go live, the whole squad had no choice but to let this dude, who honestly looked like he had zero future, go up and promote first. This time the company was marketing a brand new product called the all-purpose cleaning glove. You just need one quick swipe over a stain, and the grease stuck on the glass is gone. Everyone thought this guy's pitching was actually pretty decent. Who would have thought that in the very next second, the whole company practically froze when this dude kept scrubbing a stain on the board with the glove, but it just wouldn't come clean. He even had to ask someone to come out and help, but there was absolutely no way to wipe it off, because that mud stain was already bone dry. Right in the middle of this total disaster, they had no idea how to do damage control. Barely any viewers were paying attention to the product anymore. Out of nowhere, the live stream camera suddenly switched to a whole different angle. You could only see our main girl currently standing on a window washer suspended scaffolding. Jin was live at Lux Tower, a super famous building in a local area of South Korea. Seeing her, everyone finally started to breathe a huge sigh of relief, but this shoot wasn't exactly safe, all just for the sake of the company's sales. Despite the risk, Jin started her pitch, saying everyone knows that the glass on commercial buildings is usually super hard to get completely clean using regular methods. She pulled out some standard cloth towels and gave it a few test wipes. Sure enough, it didn't do jack squat. Even though she scrubbed really hard, those stains wouldn't budge at all. After doing a hair tie move that totally grabbed the audience's attention, Jin whipped out the company's all-purpose glove. She started pitching that this fabric was soaked in any cleaning chemicals, just plain water, by dabbing it on her face. Then she went straight ahead and wiped it on the glass covered in stubborn dirt. With just a single swipe, the stain vanished instantly. No cap. She even scribbled on the glass with a lipstick that's known to be totally impossible to wash off, and then wiped it away super easily. The janitor guy who cleans the windows had been watching from the start, and was totally blown away. He probably wanted to buy one right then and there, because with his old gear those windows wouldn't be clean until next year. Online the view count was absolutely blowing up right now. From those pyramid scheme bros to stay-at-home moms, and even baseball players, everyone was totally hooked. So the traffic hitting the company's product page officially went way out of control. The order sales were going straight through the roof. Seeing the livestream queen make people buy stuff like this with just a few simple moves, the higher-up managers were visibly happy and smiling. There wasn't a single drop of stress left compared to when that useless dude was on screen earlier. It's so true that when people sell things, they need to have both heart and vision. Using real-life tactics is the only way to draw in a massive crowd. I definitely have to go try this out tomorrow too. The products quickly sold out in just a few minutes. Hearing the news, Jin was so hyped that she grabbed the cameraman for a huge celebration hug like a little kid. And just like that, today's product sold out yet again. Meanwhile, totally different from Jin, in a tiny countryside town called Dokbung Village, this handsome young guy goes for a run for a few miles around the neighborhood every single day. Trailing right behind him is the neighbor's dog named Bai Ma. I'm just calling him that. The show doesn't actually say it. Lee is super loved by all the ladies in the village, because he always brings that white horse dog along for his jogs. But those ladies had no idea that the dog was just following him on its own, and Lee was actually terrified it would wander off and bite somebody. One of the aunties brought over some corn to gift him. He was about to pass on it because he already had plenty of food at home, but the old lady threatened to literally throw the whole pile in the trash. Left with no choice, he just had to take the gifts from the aunties. Suddenly, a bunch of older guys came running over in a complete panic, calling out to Lee. Makes sense why he's so beloved, right? Because for stuff like the TV losing its signal like this, everything just falls right into his lap. He was just about to say no to fixing it, but then the ladies in the village showed up carrying snacks like corn, sweet potatoes and cassava so they could watch a music show. In the whole village, only this one neighbor's house actually has a TV, so whenever it's time, all the elderly folks in the area just squat up here to watch the music program. This scene totally gives me major nostalgia for back in the day when the whole village only had one TV and everyone would huddle up together exactly like that. Out of options, Lee had to climb up onto the roof to mess with the antenna mast. After messing around with it for a bit, the grandpas and grandmas finally got exactly what they wanted, even though this time he totally wore an annoyed look on his face while helping out these older folks. Whenever people talked about it, they said he pretty much never turned down a single request. First off, there was that time he helped folks in the village deliver a baby cow. Before he was even done with that one, another cow gave birth, and he had to step in and help. Even getting rid of a beehive got dumped on his plate, and then there was making kimchi, until his eyes were literally burning. Even when a storm hit, he had to go out and help the locals tie down their vegetable gardens, and then he had to help the older folks pack up their stuff. It's probably because of all these things that he slowly lost that happy vibe on his face, leaving behind just a totally chill and indifferent look, though deep down he still has a kind heart. After Jin headed back to the office, she was totally mobbed by a bunch of admiring fans begging to snap a picture with her. You can definitely tell just how super famous she really is, but right now Jin had zero time because she was rushing out to a date with her doctor boyfriend. The second she got there, Jin immediately caught a super salty look from her guy. Seriously, all she had to do was show up, and the food was already ordered and waiting right there on the table. It's pretty obvious that this was the first or second time she'd shown up late for a date like this. To spark up some romance, her boyfriend even tossed 2 movie tickets right onto the table. Catching sight of that, Jin immediately hit him with a heads up, saying that she'd be busy with work right after dinner, which totally made her boyfriend decide to vent all his built-up frustration right then and there today. Do you have any idea how insanely busy it is being a doctor like me? Yeah, you just keep being busy. Jin had already focused all her attention squarely on the steak knife. While her boyfriend was just running his mouth non-stop on the sidelines, Jin was only paying attention to how crazy good the quality of this knife actually was. If she took it back to pitch on her live stream, it would absolutely sell out for sure. And just like that, her boyfriend went ahead and dropped the breakup line. She still brushed it off like it was no big deal, and shot back. Alright, I guess I'll just push back my meeting and go catch the movie with you then. Wow, talk about a majorly frustrating shock. Even though I'm a doctor who sees hundreds of patients a day and operates on dozens of cases, I still just want to be a totally normal guy living a regular dating life. You can totally understand how much unfair grievance the boyfriend had to suffer through in this relationship all because of Jin. It's a total bummer, for real. A little bit later, Jin just grabbed the knife, walked right up and asked the manager, "Hey, do you happen to know where this knife is manufactured and could you give me the info?" So she headed straight back to the company, totally hyped about the new product. The merchandising guy, Huang, was absolutely dumbfounded, not knowing what on earth this sister was planning to do walking around holding a weapon, but honestly these two definitely had their brains wired for making sales, not for dating. The younger guy noticed that the knife was pretty darn sharp and figured it was the perfect product for their upcoming sales pitch. Right after their evening meeting, Jin was standing in front of her second place ranking poster, totally lost in her feelings. Out of nowhere, that super annoying senior coworker who sells mixed creams popped up and asked, "Whatcha looking at? Trying to act all like a Japanese girl and sell mixed creams to steal the #1 revenue spot like me, huh? In your dreams, honey." Jin threw shade right back at her in a heartbeat. "Good thing I don't peddle mixed creams, because by the time I sell 10 you've only managed to sell 1. It was honestly a good thing that Jin's bestie dragged her away, or else that cream-selling sister would have gotten roasted with a few more savage insults out of anger. To celebrate selling completely out of stock that morning, the two of them hit up a chicken joint upstairs to knock back some barley vitamins. After that, they just got into deep discussions about what their daily lives were like. Like, take her older sister here. She literally just goes to work so she can drink beer and eat fried chicken. She's just a totally regular person who wants a regular life. All of a sudden, Jin caught herself realizing that she was being a bit heartless, seeing as her ex-boyfriend just wanted a dating life with her too. But she honestly didn't feel too sad about it, because Jin has always been a total workaholic. Anyone walking into her house would be completely overwhelmed, because every single marketing product was put on display with careful notes written on them. It was like every single item in there was a trophy for her sold-out live streams. On top of that, she was so crazily busy that even when her parents dropped by to bring her food, she barely even ate much of it. Totally different from that crazy hustle. The guy Lee was living a way more laid-back life out in the country. One person was just chilling, reading books and enjoying their youth, while the other was totally burning herself out so she wouldn't lose out to anyone else. Just when she finally went to sleep, a nightmare rushed back, giving us a little sneak peek into Jin's dark past, which instantly made her lose sleep. Fast forward to the very next morning at a certain company, the big boss bro Kang Mugon was calling Lee, asking, "Do you like the tractor your big bro gifted you, little bro?" Looking at a tractor that honestly looked somewhat too fancy, Lee hit him with a hard pass right on the spot. But the fact that he was spoken to by the director brother in such a somewhat humble way proved that his background power was definitely no joke. Right as he was about to hang up, his bro Mugon seriously asked about that issue. "Are you not changing your mind?" Lee just reminded his bro to simply stick to the plan. Because she didn't sleep well last night, Jin currently had to rely on makeup to hide the dark circles under her eyes. It was a no-brainer that Jin had a live broadcast scheduled for today. But the second she strolled into the filming hall, the manager totally dropped that today's slot was all about the cosmetics of her senior, Junji. Yep, the exact person she just threw shade at yesterday. And obviously the person who changed that was the director who was super tight with Junji. That lady went straight ahead and changed it, leaving Jin's whole schedule completely wrecked. Out of options, she could only call her older sister. But the sister didn't even bother to pick up the phone. Jin dialed the younger brother, and the younger brother happened to be sitting right next to the coworker sister. The younger guy didn't know whether he should answer or not. The sister instantly judged, saying that answering means there's trouble, so it's best you just keep quiet. But as if suddenly thinking of something, the two of them instantly hauled butt over to go find her. Sure enough, the exact thing the two were worried about the most had arrived. Jin marched straight into the director's office, totally questioning why she bypassed her filming process and swapped it for Sister Junji's show. The director slid over a document file, saying that at the company's current revenue speed, HIT would be completely swallowed whole by CT before the next quarter. The exact product that made CT rise up like that was the pressed powder from the BT cosmetic brand. Done. Because of this, the director cut Jin's broadcast, giving that cosmetic brand a replacement broadcast instead. Even though doing so made logical sense, Jin's rate was straight up undeniable since she could literally sell out the goods every single time she went on air. Even knowing that, the boss just tossed a completely different cosmetic brand onto the table. If she didn't want her airtime taken, Jin would have to livestream and sell this makeup. All the way from her past, Jin had a terrifying nightmare that left her totally afraid to touch the thing called selling when it came to beauty products right up until the present. And exactly because of this, the director standing in front of her told Jin that if she didn't do it, her dream of hosting her very own show would also end right here. So when Jin stepped outside, those two siblings asked Jin what the director said. She recounted that if she wanted to keep selling, she had to go convince the French brand Letty. The obvious problem everyone knew was that Jin never sold cosmetics. Right now at an international airport, Eric, a Korean expat director, was gearing up to have a meeting with his partner. And that partner was none other than the director brother, Kang Mugon, when asked how his contract modification proposal was going. The older bro remembered back to when the younger brother, Lee, bluntly tossed it in the trash. Well, we reviewed it very carefully, but I won't be able to give you the answer you were hoping for. Eric was wondering why their side had bumped up the production volume by 5 times, especially when the terms were all totally beneficial to Mugon's side like that. What was the problem that the two sides couldn't team up? The older bro just totally pulled a random excuse, saying that having too many goods was too hard to control. It's exactly like that. The older guy bluntly declared that his company would not renew the contract with France's Letty. By the time Eric got back to the car, he wondered why Director Kang seemed somewhat weird today. It was as if he was speaking on behalf of someone else. Obviously, we can totally understand a bit about Letty's hidden identity. That night it poured rain. Jin's whole squad was super annoyed because they didn't get to broadcast live, and they had to sit there and watch that hateful little girl live stream selling makeup, which just made you mad just by looking at it. Just to comfort Jin, the two Hong siblings totally badmouthed Junji, and then bailed early. Just staring at that live stream screen, Jin had so many memories coming rushing back to her. Back in the day, before she was ever afraid of the thing called public opinion influence, Jin live streamed a pitch for a moisturizing cream named Good Morning by the USU. Everything after that, the manufacturer had a problem, which resulted in a heavy hitter in the sales game like her getting terribly boycotted. The little jar of cream caused users to get irritated, and just thinking back on it made Jin feel even more heartbroken inside. It's totally true that every single profession has its two sides. dragging her restless mood back home. Feelings of insomnia, depression and anxiety slowly rolled in non-stop. Whenever she felt off, Jin resorted to meds. The dosage of her abusing sleeping pills was so heavy that she slowly felt like she herself was starting to go crazy. Just because of one mistake in the past, she forever avoided and feared the thing called cosmetics all the way to the present. Every time she closed her eyes, she dreamed of the scene from that day, seeing tons of people who used the cosmetics breaking out with red rashes all over their faces. The psychological trauma was just way too massive, which is why she frequently had trouble sleeping like that. Fast forward to the next day, she was still groggily sleeping while her phone was just ringing off the hook. Sister Young called forever, but she didn't pick up. It wasn't until a while later that Jin finally dragged her tired body all the way to the studio. Sister Young asked with sweet concern, but she just told her she was totally fine. And just like that, today's shoot went down and luckily was totally normal, but deep down inside her heart she kept obsessing over the things the doctor said. She had to face the fear that dragged her down to this level. That night, just to cheer her younger sister up, Sister Young advised Jin that if this industry didn't work out she could just go over to CT to work. I have so many years of experience here, you honestly don't have to worry. You remember when you first started selling, right? Our whole group's revenue was at 30%, but now it totally crosses the 200% mark. You see, Sister Young kept pouring out the comfort and hyping Jin up so she wouldn't be haunted by that scam mixed cream from that year anymore. The very next day, chilling at Eric's cell's office, his manager got an email straight from Hit. He hurriedly gave Eric the heads up that a girl named Damn Jin wanted to team up with his Leto brand. Hearing this name, Eric Cell's eyes practically lit up. Dude, I've literally been sitting in this room reading documents for days. Go ahead and quickly arrange a meeting with her. But obviously, looking at Eric's face, it was like the two of them had known each other from before, holding on to so much hope. When the meeting day came, Eric looked at her sunny smile, feeling like it could capture his soul instantly. However, Jin greeted him and said it was their first time meeting and that he looked super unfamiliar, making Eric's heart definitely skip a beat in disappointment. For the whole rest of the day, Eric just kept stealing glances at Jin. Instead of reading the contract, he totally just wanted to shoot the breeze. He even asked her to look closely to see if she recognized him, but she just flashed an innocent smile, saying that she had already read the contract carefully. Despite all that, Eric just went ahead and accepted the partnership invitation, which totally left Jin racking her brain, not understanding why everything went so smoothly like that. As far as she knew, her company had sent out a pitch to team up since last year. Eric didn't answer anything back but just laid down exactly one condition, which was asking Jin to help Eric's Leto sort out the supply source for raw materials. The second he headed back to France, Eric would prioritize her company's proposal. The older manager dude saw the two of them talking and agreeing with each other so fast that he was instantly dumbfounded, and it wasn't even over yet. When they stepped outside, the two of them also schemed up a plan to cooperate with each other. One person would go sweet-talk the director of the supply chain, while the other would track down the source to totally win over the farm owner. Everything went exactly as Eric, who secretly crushed on Jin, had planned. He took the chance to grab the phone number of the girl he liked. If she doesn't remember me, then I'll just have to seize the moment like this. So that very night, Jin went home to prepare everything she needed. She started working on a pile of documents and felt that this time, things were going smoother than ever. Carrying that confident vibe, she put on a pure white outfit. Victory is mine. Today I'm gonna win over that farm owner. According to the address Eric gave her, the supply source for his company was in Dokbung village, located outside the city. Jin immediately drove out there to enjoy the fresh air. The only problem was that the road she took was the one leading out of the village, and it was a one-way street. As a result, she ended up in a head-on standoff with Lee's tractor. Not only was she going the wrong way, but she also honked her horn incessantly. The other side didn't back down either. The two of them just kept going beep beep beep. Hey old man, let me through. The person up there didn't say a word and just kept honking back. When Jin stood up to confront the man, he took off his hat. She was instantly stunned by Lee's good looks. Even so, she stubbornly told him to move out of the way. Lee told her she was going the wrong way. Even if it's a country road, this is still a one-way street. Neither of them would budge. On one side was a tractor that couldn't reverse, and on the other was a girl arguing back and honking, refusing to back up. Later on, if their kids ever ask, this is how the main character's parents met. Not wanting to waste time, Jin had to give in and back up. Consequently, her car got stuck right in a pile of dirt on the side of the road. Lee asked her why she was just leaving her car there and walking away, to which she replied that she was in a huge rush. Go ahead and hit it if you want. It's a bit expensive though. If Jin had known the guy in front of her was the person she was looking for, her face would have totally frozen up. So after being ignored, our fake poor CEO guy started measuring the distance of his tractor to see if it would fit through the narrow gap in the road. As it turned out, he scraped and broke the convertible Sparrowed. He still didn't care about anything. Anyway, it was a very cool day today. When she reached the nursery, Jin looked all over the place but couldn't find the person she was looking for. After walking for a while, she discovered Lee was driving his tractor right behind her. She asked, "Why are you following me?" Lee simply replied, "This is my own private road." Since she had been wearing high heels all day, Jin's feet were starting to hurt quite a bit. Seeing him constantly tailing her, she started getting delusions. You were following me because it's your first time seeing a beautiful girl like me, right? I've had plenty of guys in sports cars chase me, but this is the first time I've seen one on a tractor. She kept rambling on for a while. Jin stated her purpose for coming here was to meet the supplier of medicinal ingredients for the perfume company. She kept cutting him off, not letting Lee speak. He got so annoyed that he told her to just stand to the side so he could pass, but Jin suddenly realized his tractor was carrying the pile of mushrooms she needed. Then, seeing the tractor actually could reverse, she got even more frustrated. Lee lost all patience and asked her what she wanted. Learning that Jin's goal was to find the mushroom grower for the perfume, he immediately kicked her out and closed the gate. Who would have thought Jin's skin was thicker than a tire? She asked Lee for a way to contact the owner of this mushroom garden. Then she confidently introduced herself as the MC from Hit named Damn Jin. He looked at her with zero sympathy and immediately locked the door. Jin was stunned because that guy even used a chain lock just to be safe. Unlike the scene outside, the inside actually made a person feel like they were lost in a primeval forest. The mushrooms were meticulously cared for. When manager Bae AC saw Lee, it was like he was meeting a drill sergeant. He was completely respectful. It was easy to see how much power he had over the local people in this area. A little later, Lee brought out a tray of mushrooms. Jin had to beg him for help. Her feet were peeling because she'd been in high heels all afternoon. Seeing her wounded feet and that begging face, he led her to a refrigerator filled with gardener's shoes. You don't have to pay, just take a pair. Also, I'm going to report you for obstructing my business. Since her feet hurt less now, Jin had no choice but to temporarily wear a pair. Later, when she returned to her car, Jin realized her beloved vehicle had lost one of its ears thanks to some jerk. She screamed and cried out, "Are you crazy?" Then a familiar voice rang out, but it was just another old man. Not that. She didn't get to meet the farm owner, and now her car light was broken too. Jin was heartbroken over her car. Meanwhile, while working, Lee kept thinking about Jin's introduction. He was lost in thought for a moment, until the manager called him back to check on an issue. As for Jin, since her car wouldn't go, she tried her best to find a way out of there. She saw online that she only had 30 minutes left to make it back to the company in time. Suddenly, a sound made her shiver. Turning around, she saw the mirror of her baby had finally fallen off. The car she had saved up for so long just lost an important part. She cried for it as if it were a living disabled person. Jin started staggering and sat on the front of the car. Looking over, she saw Lee driving by on his tractor, carrying the local ladies like a king on a royal tour. Suddenly realizing she needed to get back to the office, Jin ran and called out. But the sound of the ladies chatting completely drowned out Jin's voice. Seeing that annoying girl constantly running after him, Lee immediately sped up, ignoring her even if she called until her throat went dry. It wasn't until Jin collapsed unconscious on the ground, and the ladies called out to him that he finally stopped the tractor. Seeing a glove in front of her, she thought he was reaching out his hand to hold hers, so she grabbed it. Who would have thought the handsome guy would just blankly look at her with a confused expression? Jin had misunderstood that the handsome guy was offering his hand. Totally embarrassed, she quickly stuffed the glove into his pants pocket. Later, when she got on Lee's tractor, she realized her baby had actually been hit by this farm guy. She intended to give him a kick, but the ladies stopped her and told her to sit down. When they arrived, she wished she could just chop this guy into pieces. For some reason, after everyone got off the tractor, Lee used it to block a bus. Then naturally, he got on the bus to find someone, while the driver thought he was looking for trouble. He actually was looking for trouble because it was 3 minutes before departure time. In reality, Lee saw that the ladies had been knocked over by the driver, so he wanted to teach the guy a lesson and help the village grandmas out a bit. Jin thought he was helping her, so she shyly said thank you. Then Lee immediately stepped closer to observe. You'd think it was a romantic movie moment, but it was actually a total fail because she was sitting in a seat reserved for the elderly. What kind of person constantly makes a girl feel so flustered? After this trip, Jin called Eric to report that the garden owner was that there. At the same time, he received Jin's file brought by his manager. There was one strange thing the manager noticed in Jin's recording sessions. She had never sold cosmetics since her very first broadcast at the company. Eric only saw Jin's success, so he was quite excited. But when he flipped to the last page, his expression suddenly changed when he saw the incident that made Jin give up cosmetics that year. Back that year, everyone who used the cream Jin sold had serious toxic issues, leading the manufacturer to stand before the public and apologize. Actress Song Mong had to end her acting career. At the same time, Jin hadn't been back at the company for long when senior Junji got furious upon hearing Jin had to partner with the Leto cosmetic brand. She thought Jin was doing it to spite her, but Jin was just trying to save her own livestream career and didn't care about Junji's delusional sales numbers at all. Right then, the company director walked by. Junji immediately reported why Jin was on the leaderboard even though she refused to promote. So the director started a session of chewing out the staff. Knowing Jin really didn't want to sell cosmetics, she still threatened her, saying there were other employees behind her who were counting on her. She was silently forcing Jin to sell those goods no matter what. At Eric's office, he received a package said to be from his sister Mi in France. Seeing his sister had sent a package, Eric opened it and found it was full of his favorite vinyl records. As soon as the music started, it was like he was traveling back to the past. Back when he was in Korea, he was beside an innocent and naive girl, who was none other than Jin. Back then, the two of them felt close as soon as they met. Eric felt as if he had met the destiny of his life until the time he asked Jin out for coffee. His eyes kept looking at the shop door every time it opened. But then, a handsome mixed-race guy like him was stood up until late at night. The shop closed, but that girl never showed up. Hearing this both tragic and funny story, the manager had to exclaim that the two of them had no fate. Eric didn't think so, because meeting her again this time, he would make that destiny happen. At Dokbung village, as usual, Lee followed his dog on a leash around the village. When he brought the dog home, a neighbor lady caught him and forced him inside to help fix a water pipe. What pipe? She brought out a whole pot of potatoes and forced him to eat at least 5 before he could leave. No wonder any kid raised by grandparents turns out so chubby. When the neighbor lady heard an ad on TV, she couldn't dial the number for the product she wanted to buy, so she turned to Lee to dial it for her. He had just turned to help her when he realized the girl on the screen was that beautiful but crazy girl who just came to the village. He immediately commented that advertisements nowadays are all exaggerated. Anyway, let me take you to the sauna first, Grandma. Somehow, she still wanted to register to buy it. Lee had to help her sign up, and then fate intervened. The live show happened to be doing a lucky draw. Just as he finished entering for her, she won the prize. When Jin heard the news, she realized she really did have a connection with this village, and then she quickly headed to that village according to the winner's address. The neighbor lady met that girl again but couldn't remember from where. First she invited Jin to eat some leftover potatoes, then she asked Jin's reason for coming here. She told her about the bathtub she ordered on the shopping channel. Because of that she won extra prizes, so Jin acted as the delivery person to bring them to her. When asked if the name of her husband was Mr. Lee, she exclaimed, "My husband's name is Moon K." Jin thought she was mistaken, and the lady pointed out that the man named Lee lived over on the other side. So, a little later, she received a super confusing map. She reached the address but called and called without anyone coming out to receive it. It wasn't until a while later that Lee came out. Like enemies on a narrow road, the two of them were visibly annoyed the moment they met. Lee asked what she was doing there. Jin replied, "I'm here to deliver a package to some guy named Lai Shok. His middle name is hidden for privacy reasons. When asked for his name, Lee gave another name, Mao, and told her to just leave it there. Jin thought for a while, and realized the nickname Lee was another way to read Molly. His surname combined with a foreign name, it sounded like the name of a quail, so Jin laughed delightedly. As for the name Lee Shock, Jin thought it belonged to Lee's dad. Then thinking he was the owner of that mushroom farm, she immediately changed her attitude, and wanted to ask for partnership info. Looking at Lee's face, she wouldn't get it even if she stayed up all night. To partner with Eric's brand, Jin decided she had to stay in this area to get the owner's info no matter what. So, after returning to that old lady's house, she asked to stay for a night. From then on, troubles in the village began to hit constantly. Not long after changing her clothes, Jin ran right into a scene of chickens rioting, wanting their freedom like a chicken run squad. She had a chase all around the village, from the bottom of the hill to the top, right in front of Lee's house. The chicken actually learned a backflip skill, and with a burst of momentum, it skillfully leaped over the fence. Oh, what to do? Lee had just put on his boot when he was startled by Jin, who was sticking to him like a ghost. He slowly walked up and asked if this was how she meant she would come to his house again. She really didn't know how to explain. She told him it was because the lady's chicken flew over the fence. Mayo immediately reported it to the police, and they actually showed up. According to the investigation, they didn't find a single chicken. Jin wanted to settle it privately, but Lee didn't like that. She told him she was quite famous on TV. What if the news reports on me? Lee didn't give in, so she pulled out the dashcam footage from her beloved car. It showed the action of him accidentally causing the car's ear to fall off. If we look at a hit and run, isn't that more serious than trespassing? So Lee had no choice but to settle with this girl. He didn't want to get involved much, and asked about the compensation fee, to which Jin named a huge number, but instead, she said she didn't need it, she just needed him to give her the owner's information. So first, the two of them wrote an agreement not to bother each other, specifically requiring them to know each other's addresses just in case. That night, Big Brother Mugon came to announce that Leto had requested another meeting, but he had refused. The main goal was still to get Lee to return to the business path, because he alone could handle everything with his own goods. In response to his brother, Lee just looked at him with a very cold gaze. That night, back at the neighbor's house, Jin kept wondering what the true identity of this guy named Lee was. First she thought, is he a gambler hiding from debt? But no matter how much she thought, she couldn't understand. Well, instead of suspecting, she went straight there to ask. Seeing the pile of white nori mushrooms, she was extremely excited, but when she saw Lee about to call the police, she immediately stopped him. Since she was already there, Jin wanted to take a practical tour and started talking about the benefits of this type of mushroom. Walking around to the back of the garden, she was instantly attracted by the beauty of this place just because the mushroom-growing trees were so beautiful. Lee suddenly told her to calm down, as if he saw something. His expression immediately changed. Fearing she would dirty the mushrooms, he wanted to kick Jin out immediately. To stay there, she stopped Lee and asked why he was there so late. She secretly cursed him as a jerk, which successfully caught his attention, but it was the kind of attention that got her kicked out the door immediately. However, having witnessed this area, Jin herself was very satisfied. Just as she got outside, Mayo-D received a phone call from his brother, and he immediately hung up. When called again, he was very annoyed, but this time it was a child's voice. He was helpless when his brother asked him to babysit his nephew, Dong-Ku. Lee threatened that if the kid helped anyone else, he would change his number. That night, right when he got home, Lee was hit on the head by something. He picked it up from the ground, and saw it was a chicken egg. He started looking around and realized that girl Jin wasn't lying to him. There really was a supernatural chicken. As for Jin, because it was her first time sleeping in the countryside, the sounds of animals and insects kept her from falling asleep. She checked her phone, and it was only midnight. She checked her money through her bag. Luckily she had a few sleeping pills, so she was too worried. Meanwhile, just as Lee was about to go to sleep, the phone rang repeatedly. Big Brother Mugon begged him to come back for some project, and as a result he changed his phone number. Thinking he would sleep well this time, another strange call came in, but he didn't pick up, until it rang again, and the voice on the other end called out, "Mom, why aren't you picking up?" It turned out the new phone number Lee just bought was actually Jin's mom's old number.
Picking up the photo, Jin cried her eyes out, missing her mom and dad. In the past, she had suffered too much trauma when her mother left. Every happy memory and every gentle bit of care from her mother seemed to have been forgotten by Jin. There was that moment her mother told her, "Jin, don't come looking for me anymore." While her mom looked a bit sad, Jin was just carefree and innocent, thinking it was just a secret between the two of them. And so, they only saw each other through phone calls at 8 p.m. every Sunday. Every week on the dot, their phones would ring. But everything seemed to shatter for Jin one day. Back then, she wanted to call her mom but couldn't get through. Right at that moment, the news reported that Jin's mom had just been in an accident and was in the hospital. Ignoring the earlier promise not to find her mom, the little girl ran to the hospital as fast as she could. Mixing in with the crowd of reporters there, Jin called out "Mom" twice, which left everyone completely shocked. Her mother only responded with a terrifying silence. Just like that, the two of them gradually grew apart, and the trauma inside Jin only got worse. That anxiety became a habit where she would call the old number just to hear her mother's voice. This accidentally ticked off Minho since he was the one currently using that exact phone number. After a dozen times of feeling helpless, Minho finally woke up and very seriously answered the phone. The next morning, he was in a thoughtful mood and drove off somewhere. At Jin's grocery store, the neighborhood ladies were busy buying and selling, enjoying the start of the day. Right then, Jin's younger sister, Na-young, stepped out. Immediately, her sister pulled her back inside and handed her a new face mask. Na-young thought being stubborn would let her get away with it, but once Jin counted to 3, she obediently put on the mask. It turned out Na-young's face was breaking out with bad acne, which is why she had to do that. Stepping outside, the girl also happened to see a gift box that Minho had brought over. He just dropped off the gift without showing his face at all, making everyone curious about who the sender was. That morning, Jin packed her things and planned to head out. Before she could even get out the gate, she ran into the lead guy walking in, carrying a prize rooster. You'd think they would talk to each other nicely, but Minho showed up in a totally aggressive mood. He handed her the car repair money from the other day and just left immediately. Since she was in a rush to catch the next bus, Minho's grandma pushed Jin onto his vehicle. Before they left, the grandma even teased them, saying they looked like such a great couple and wondered if they both had significant others yet. Sitting on that fateful ride, Jin ran into all sorts of bugs, which made her a bit scared, so she huddled behind his back. They kept going like that until Jin saw from a distance that she and Minho were together. After dropping the grandma and Jin at the bus stop, Minho also left right away. It was a total contrast to the love of 28-year-olds. They had the vibe of a 40-year-old couple. Sitting in a coffee shop, a guy named Kwang Mo was watching a YouTube video introducing their village. Unexpectedly, his crush, the coffee shop owner Yoon Ji, walked in. By instinct, the 40-year-old dude bolted straight over to say hi. To keep a promise to his crush, Kwang Mo didn't hesitate to go out into the middle of the road to film. After shooting the first intro scene, he started filming people walking across the street. Somehow, Kwang Mo ran right into Minho, who was driving his tractor toward him. Being half asleep, Minho completely didn't hear what the other guy was saying. Luckily, nothing happened, so no one got into an accident. It was all because Jin kept spamming him with calls the night before, which is why he was so sleep-deprived today. So the two guys drove back together, and suddenly they stopped in front of Minho's house. A construction crew was there, working hard and carrying heavy stuff non-stop. It turned out someone from Minho's old research team, Kang Do, had come to renovate the house. Seeing the other guys show up to fix his place and try to convince him to come back to the research lab, Minho was completely helpless but still refused. He directly answered the phone and told the person on the other end, "I'm definitely not coming back." After saying that, Minho stepped out to get in his car. So Kang Do, after failing to convince him, waited for him to go get fitted for a suit. It's true that clothes make the man, so our main guy looked extremely sharp in every suit he wore. To help his younger brother win, Mugan didn't hesitate to give him his precious car. Minho went straight to the place of the person who was begging him to renew the contract. That was Eric, a guy who wanted to control the entire production process of the lead guy. Even though Eric changed the contract and increased the benefits, Minho didn't care at all. The process must be entirely produced by me and not interfered with by anyone else. Just like that, the two of them didn't reach any agreement and left. Eric then went to find Jin to inform her of the current situation. Jin was also extremely surprised after hearing the story. However, she still didn't realize that the farm owner she just sat with was actually that difficult group chairman. Carrying the question of how to convince him, Jin's whole team stayed up day and night to analyze the situation. One of the guys realized, what if the group chairman is also the farm owner? Over here, Minho, with a kind heart, brought rice to the old bus driver every day. His grandma even gave the guy some money, like she was buying milk for his kids. Does money really change people? Because the very next morning, that driver stood in front of all the villagers and gave a very sincere apology. "I apologize to everyone for my unpleasant attitude." That sincerity received some genuine empathy from the bottom of Minho's heart. By now, Jin had to go back to working as the employee in charge of customer feedback. To be honest, she was the one getting cursed out by customers for selling faulty products. By some coincidence, Minho called right at that moment. It turned out his grandma bought a sauna machine that wouldn't work at all, so he called to chew out those people for selling junk. With a familiar voice, Jin asked for the name of the person on the other end. As soon as she heard the name of that chairman, the female lead immediately turned into a total weirdo. She couldn't stop laughing right in the middle of her office and then ran straight to his place. At this moment, Jin was certain that the farm owner was the group chairman her whole team was looking for. In just a minute, Jin was in front of Minho's house, calling him loudly and introducing herself as the person sent by the company to fix that faulty product. Jin just bolted straight inside his house. To prove the sauna machine was perfectly fine, Jin asked him to use a new machine nearby. Each person took one, and neither would give in as they sat inside to experience the sauna. It wasn't clear if it was hot or not, but Jin kept rubbing her temples to make herself sweat faster. Seeing that, Minho shouted right at her, "You're just faking it to make yourself sweat." But he had no idea that he himself was actually starting to sweat. Seeing that the other guy was also very hot, Jin ran over to beg him to withdraw the complaint. She just kept tickling him, making him laugh like crazy. Tickling was the easy part. Who would have thought Jin would also grab Minho's hand tightly, creating a super awkward scene? After that moment of staring into each other's eyes, Minho felt more relaxed with Jin and brewed some tea for her. Right then, she laid her cards on the table. "Hello, Mr. Chairman. I'm here from my company to partner with you." All Jin got in return was the other guy's indifference. She was ignored to the point that even the dog, Bai Ma, wouldn't even turn its face to talk to her. It wasn't until the lead guy's grandma came over with a bone that the dog finally behaved. When night came, while Minho had to take some medicine to sleep, Jin was also struggling with a trauma in her heart. This time, she still called the old phone number to find her mother, but the only response she got was the sound of Minho snoring. The next morning, she woke up and joined the villagers, transforming into a farmer to plant mushrooms. She thought she could fool Minho, but with just one look, he saw through Jin's disguise. Knowing she couldn't hide, she just thick-skinnedly jumped right in. Inside the farm, they were growing white ori mushrooms. They go to work on time and leave on time after 6:30. Nobody knows who is richer than who. Everyone left regardless of whether there was still a lot of work or not. Jen was the same. Once work was done, she followed Minho like a shadow to convince him to sign the contract. She kept nagging him all the way from the farm back to Minho's house. Standing in front of the door, the two of them looked like they were headbutting each other. Originally, Minho forbade her from stepping inside, so Jin could only beg from the outside. Somehow, Jin slipped and face-planted right into Minho's lap area. Since she wasn't allowed to step on his floor, she had to use some momentum to stand straight up. That burst of momentum accidentally caused Jin to tumble to the ground and break her arm. It wasn't clear how bad the injury was, but she was just lying flat on the ground. Seeing that, Minho had to drive his tractor to take her for a checkup. While sitting on the tractor, Jin played the begging and pleading card with the lead guy. They eventually made it to the clinic to bandage her arm. Leaving there, she was extremely disappointed because she still had a live stream to do tonight. With this arm, how could she get anything done? Driven by curiosity, Minho also opened his phone to watch Jin's sales broadcast. Ignoring the doctor's advice, she actually decided to take off the bandage to practice during the live stream. In that performance, Minho saw that she was enduring the pain just to do the live stream. At this moment, he seemed to reconsider for Jin and pulled the report out of the trash can. Outside, Junji had arrived to bring Minho an envelope. Besides the money, what Junji brought was a whole lot of jealousy too. Ugh, what kind of trashy girl is she? Over here, Jen had just finished the live stream when her colleague accidentally ran over and pulled right on her painful arm. That woman was also a poisonous snake, filling the female lead's head with toxic thoughts. That night, Jen went back home to have dinner with her father. Once again, that dad pulled right on her sore arm, making her scream. Jen had always been extremely disappointed in this annoying father of hers. Looking back to the day her mom left her, she thought her mother had become heartless, but it was actually her father who had hidden the moment the mother came back to apologize to Jen. Even if he apologizes hundreds or thousands of times now, it still can't be overlooked. That night, by instinct, Jen called her mother again. Minho was working through the night when he suddenly got the call. After realizing the person who kept calling to vent their misery was Jen, Minho seemed to lose his cool and abruptly hung up the phone. Right then, the sound of something breaking ran out, making him panic and rush over in his car. Jen was currently sleepwalking, wandering around alone in the middle of the night. Luckily, the lead guy showed up just in time to pull her back. Otherwise, 1 second later, Jen would have been hit by a car. After pulling Jen back and asking if she was drunk, Jen didn't answer him and just walked like a soulless doll with no emotion. Seeing Jin like this, Minho suddenly remembered himself in the past when he had a leg wound but nobody noticed. So he rushed to a nearby convenience store to buy her a pair of slippers to wear so her feet wouldn't hurt so much. Despite that, Jen didn't show any reaction and just walked home unconsciously while Minho followed alone behind her. At the elevator of Jin's apartment building, she suddenly spun around to look at Minho and then leaned in close as if she were smelling something. In this awkward face-to-face situation, you'd think the two were about to kiss. Jen expressed her feelings. "I really like it. What brand of perfume are you wearing?" At that moment, his heart felt like it could do the samba. Just when he felt like he was about to burst with emotion, Jen only asked what brand of perfume he used so she could take it to her live stream, saying it would definitely sell out. The spark in him immediately died out. This girl's mind clearly wasn't stable right now, so Minho didn't even bother to get mad. However, that feeling of his heart thumping from earlier was definitely real. That night, after carrying Jin into her house to sleep, Minho helped her clean up the room a bit and found some leftover sleeping pills. So he also handily cleared those out because he knew they weren't good for the body. As exhausted as she was yesterday, Jin woke up this morning like nothing had happened and was very enthusiastic about exercising by the lake. She felt so refreshed that she had to start a live stream right then. At that moment, Minho was also watching Jin's live stream when his sister Song-yi caught him and asked if he was stalking someone. He immediately shot it down, saying he didn't care about her at all. The sister hit the nail on the head. If you don't like her, why are you watching her live stream? After saying that, Song-yi quickly pulled out her phone to find her sister's Instagram account. Looking at the beauty of the girl in the live stream compared to her sister, Song-yi felt her sister was doomed. She probably figured she was about to lose a future brother-in-law. Being the top seller at Hit, Jin could draw hundreds of views and interactions just by live streaming a walk. Seeing Minho so focused, his sister threw some shade, asking if he cared about her a lot and wondering if she ate or slept well last night. The older brother quickly shut off the live stream on his phone, afraid that watching more would reveal his true feelings. Arriving at the office to work, Jin suddenly felt that the pants she wore before, which were loose, now felt a bit tighter, making her feel a little worried. Recalling the days at Minho's neighbor's house where the lady fed her homegrown vegetables, it turned out Jin had eaten much more than usual. No wonder her waist grew by a few centimeters. Suddenly, those two siblings pulled Jin back to the present. The two of them wanted to know how the progress on getting the essence for the French order was going. Jin thought back to that time in Dokbung village. She had begged Minho with everything she had. As a result, she got nothing and was even haunted by a chicken in that village, which then turned Minho into a squawking chicken chasing her out of the village. In front of those two siblings, she said if they needed any help, just let her know. Jin checked her watch and gave a polite excuse. I have something to do, so I have to go first. She got into her convertible and started calling Minho's neighbor lady. The younger sister Song-yi quickly answered Jin's call and asked if she was very close to her brother. I'm very close to him. Hearing that, Jin immediately asked for Minho's address. The younger sister insisted she wouldn't say that he was out harvesting corn today. Consequently, Jin led both the grandma and the sister straight to the cornfield. Currently, Minho was warming up a bit with the villagers before the harvest. Seeing him, Jin quickly stopped her car, stepped out, and pleaded. Today, she didn't want to bother the director with a harvest. Since Grandma said you were about to harvest, I came to help. While she was talking to him, he kept remembering the moment last night when Jin said, I really like it. As a result, Minho started coughing uncontrollably, and Jin thought he wasn't feeling well. Even though he didn't really want this girl bothering him, a little later, Minho could only let Jin work herself to exhaustion helping with the corn. While working, she didn't forget to cast some romantic glances his way. At lunchtime, because she had eaten a bit too much recently and was afraid of gaining weight, she turned down the lady's invitation to eat. But then, one of the ladies forced a bite of food into her mouth. Jin suddenly felt like this simple dish was incredibly delicious. She felt like she might be hallucinating right then and there. As anyone could guess, the result was that she polished off nearly 4 bowls of rice. Just as she finished eating, Jin wanted a cup of coffee to wash it down, and then Song-yi's older sister appeared out of nowhere. It was like a wish come true. Jin was handed a cup of coffee by the older sister and was introduced by the younger sister, Song-yi. This is my older sister. She's both beautiful and has a great personality. Right after she said it, the older sister got annoyed, making the younger sister take back her words immediately. Currently, Minho was facing some trouble because the man from the brewery wanted to pay only half the price for his corn. Because of their neighborly bond, Minho had turned down all other buyers just to supply this rice wine factory. The man started complaining about how business is tough these days and all the workers have quit. However, since profit outweighed their friendship, Minho could only say goodbye to the man. Carrying the bad news, he went back to inform everyone. There's no need to pick corn today because it's better to leave it on the stalks than to harvest it and risk pests. A guy in the village asked, isn't the corn at its best during these 2 days, so why aren't we selling it? Minho could only tell everyone to head home for now because there was no buyer. But for Jin, this wasn't hard at all. She pulled Minho aside and asked about the quality and the price of his corn. This specific kind is 10 times sweeter than an apple and is pesticide-free. Jin figured out a way to clear out this entire cornfield in one go. She called the company to ask for permission for a sales live stream. So she took advantage of her reputation in the sales world, which was even bigger than that of a famous actor. Jin hosted a live stream right from the cornfields of Dokbung Gendage. She promised Minho she only needed exactly 10 minutes to sell everything, which he couldn't believe. Now, Jin started introducing Dokbung Village's product to everyone, with 10 ears of corn per box and a total of 3,000 boxes available. Jin was confident that this sweet corn would sell out fast, so she told everyone to stand by and get ready to hit the buy button. First, she talked about the origin of the sweet corn. This kind is grown in rich, fertile soil without any pesticides, so you can even eat it raw. If you don't want to eat it raw, you can make corn cakes, salads, or fried corn like these ladies here are doing. With just a few lines and her signature look, Jen managed to sell out all the goods quickly in just exactly 3 minutes on air. Even Minho was stunned, never imagining her talent was that incredible. Looks like this harvest is going to be a real backbreaker. For some reason, after the harvest, Jin had to go to the hospital because of heat stroke, to the point where her vision was blurry as Minho worriedly asked if she recognized him. When that face slowly turned back into a local village farmer, she was shocked, thinking she was about to meet the Grim Reaper. The doctor came in and reported that she just had heat stroke and wasn't dead yet, so no need to worry. After leaving the hospital, Jin went back to see Minho but just kept staring at him. He asked, "Aren't you going home?" She immediately got up and left right away. Suddenly, Jin felt dizzy again. Minho could tell she was faking it, but he didn't expect her to fake it to the point of lying on the floor like this. Minho took the sugar packets from Jin's bag and gave them to her to take herself while he just ignored her. Jin kept playing the weak card just so she could get carried princess style no matter what. "Oh man, I'm so exhausted, I can't even crawl to the sofa." Left with no choice, Minho slowly walked over to Jin. She thought she was about to be carried, but he only approached to pull her because she was wrinkling his rug. Seeing that this didn't work, she switched tactics. She started wrinkling the rug even more, just to get Minho annoyed. The result was that she got carried princess style exactly like she wanted. Who wouldn't love having a tall, buff, handsome guy carry them like that? The romance didn't last long before he coldly plopped her down on the sofa. Whether she lived or died, he just didn't care. Currently, only the neighbor guy was left in the cornfield, diligently picking corn to help Min-ho. After finishing, he felt like life was truly worth living. He was driving the tractor and singing when he ran into a bit of bad luck. Jin's colleague was on her way to pick her up when her path was blocked by the tractor, and the two of them started honking like crazy. This scene feels like something we've seen somewhere before. On top of that, a bit later, the colleague reversed her car right into the same patch of dirt where Jin's car got stuck earlier, and then she got stuck too. Seeing this, the neighbor guy immediately showed off his skills. With his pure farmer strength, he lifted the heavy car as if it were light as a feather. When he was done, he didn't forget to throw a flirtatious glance because he's been single for way too long, and landing a city girl would be a total life changer. After picking up Jin, the older lady asked her if she had negotiated with the mushroom farm owner yet. Looking at her sister, who seemed so useless, the lady knew right away that the assigned job hadn't gone anywhere. If you let me go train a dog, it would still work faster than you. After getting home, Jin felt like she needed to go out and grab a drink to wake up. Little did she know that going to the coffee shop was fate because Eric also stopped by for some coffee. Meeting Jin was like seeing a longtime crush again, and Eric's face looked just like a 3-year-old child's as. Every now and then, he'd steal a few glances at Jin and smile. I bet guys with secret crushes are all exactly the same. A bit later, Eric turned around and suddenly Jin was nowhere to be found. He rushed outside but didn't see anyone, only the sky spitting down on his head. He blurted out in French that it was such bad luck it had to rain too. People say French is the symbol of romance. Jin appeared out of nowhere, bringing back the umbrella from that year to Eric. It was the very first memory he had from when he first started crushing on Jin. The two of them slowly walked down the familiar street and started catching up on their current work. Eric couldn't let this God-given chance slip away like back in the day. He invited Jin out for a meal right then and there. Seeing Eric like this, Jin realized he liked her, so she bluntly drew the line. There should only be a professional relationship between us. We can't be lovers. Because falling in love would affect work and the friendly vibe between them, making it hard to work together again in the future. Eric just smiled, but he wasn't discouraged. After this partnership deal, I'll definitely treat you to a great meal. After the rain, Jin went to pick up her convertible, which had its left bunny ear mirror repaired. While rummaging through her bag, she realized she had dropped some sleeping pills somewhere. For her, without sleeping pills, she couldn't get a good night's rest at all. And those pills she needed happened to accidentally fall at Min-ho's place. Just as he stepped out for some fresh air, the neighbor lady called Min-ho over because she saw that he seemed lovesick. As an elderly person who had been through all of life's ups and downs, she told Min-ho that if he truly liked someone in his heart, even if you try to stop yourself from falling in love, your heart is like those jagged rocks. Feelings are like a waterfall flowing to the heart. It will seep through every crack and eventually fill your heart up anyway. Because of those words, after going home, he just sat there blankly and sighed for a long time. Suddenly, he got a very urgent phone call. You have to get to the farm immediately. When he arrived, he saw that his important pile of mushrooms was all ruined due to mold and dampness. If he didn't take protective measures right away, they would definitely be beyond saving. Min-ho asked the man to fill up the pressure tank, then got ready to wash the mushrooms. He had to save them no matter what. Meanwhile, Jin went to buy some things at a convenience store. For some reason, she left both her phone for payment and her keys inside the car, leaving her with nothing to do but blame herself. And now she had no idea how to get back, while Min-ho hurriedly checked his watch. Feeling like he needed to do something important, he immediately ran to the car and rushed off just as it started to rain. In the pouring rain, Jin could only sit helplessly in front of the convenience store. This scene made her start remembering all the times she had been alone from childhood to adulthood. Yet she comforted herself, "It's okay, I'm sure Mom will come. It's okay, Mom will be here soon." Jin must have been abandoned by her mother so many times that it became a psychological trauma. No matter how hard she tried to comfort herself, seeing Min-ho gradually running toward her made all her weakness burst out instantly. She ran to him and gave Min-ho a huge hug, not wanting to let go because he felt like a safe wall for her to be vulnerable. At this moment, Min-ho handed Jin a bag of pills in all sorts of colors, blue, red, you name it. Jin thought he was messing with her, so she crankily questioned him. Seeing how ticked off she was, the lead guy just coolly said that she should take one pack from him every day as an excuse for them to meet up daily. This vague statement left Jin flustered as she tried to argue back, but Min-ho just kept rambling on about the benefits of this medicine. He said taking it every night would help her do a great job on her next broadcast. Hearing this, Jin suddenly snapped out of it and realized Min-ho had agreed to partner with her. While Jin was in a state of pure joy, almost like she was on a high, Min-ho handily handed over a contract, requiring her to promote the benefits of that bag of pills and also requiring her to come see him every day. The second she heard that her goal had been reached, she was beyond excited and thanked him. She was about to walk away in a cool way, but then they both realized they had to deal with the mess they'd run into tonight. Just as they were about to say goodbye, Jin's phone suddenly died. Since she couldn't catch a ride, Minho had no choice but to drive her home. Realizing it would take a full 2 hours and 20 minutes to get back home, both of them were totally flustered. Jin tried to make up an excuse that since it was late tonight, the roads would definitely be empty so they could speed, and if he felt bored, she could turn into a human loudspeaker to keep Minho from being bored. But this just gave him a headache, so he firmly turned her down. As they drove, they just shot the breeze. When she heard Minho mention that she was abusing sleeping pills, Jin had major question marks in her head, not understanding how on earth he knew. Minho just ignored her and thought back to his own past when he had abused those pills in a state of grey despair. After driving for a long time, our two leads finally arrived. Probably because her mouth was so flexible and she talked so much, she had actually fallen asleep in the car without even realizing it. It took forever to wake her up, but she seemed embarrassed, so Jin even made up an excuse saying she wasn't sleeping. They argued a bit more before she got out of the car, and she asked for his contact info. Minho played hard to get and refused to give his number. He even intentionally made things difficult for her by demanding that they settle the location and filming time first. Since our Jin is a huge live stream superstar, arranging a filming schedule wasn't guaranteed because her schedule for the next month was almost completely full. Once he finally gave her the number, Jin immediately flipped the script and got out of the car. Who would have thought this car door would be so hard to open, causing the two of them to create a sweet couple moment for the audience to enjoy right before saying goodbye. Being close like that made them both start to feel a little spark for each other. Totally opposite to his cold image, when Jin opened Minho's social media page, even I was shocked by how cheesy his posts were. When she got to the elevator, she found Junji waiting for her at the door. Before even seeing Jin's face clearly, she started scolding her. She asked where the female lead had been hiding all day, before finally showing her face. After scolding for a bit, Jin intended to brag about the results of her hard work today. In response to that expectation, Junji couldn't have cared less. The next morning, Jin woke up and saw her leg had been carefully bandaged. By reflex, she asked her sister if she had been talking in her sleep yesterday, but her sister just said Jin slept as soundly as a log. On the guy's side, he was struggling with a bunch of food that the neighbor lady had brought over. While chatting for a bit, she suddenly mentioned the female lead, which almost made him choke on his noodles. Understanding what the neighbor was getting at, he tried his best to explain to avoid any misunderstanding. But the more he tried to talk, the more everyone worked to ship the young couple, hoping they'd head to the altar soon. Time waits for no one, because there were only 9 days left until the product Jin was advertising was set to launch. She had to go back to meet with the manufacturer's director to discuss the spray nozzle, which was considered not convenient enough to use. Jin bluntly pointed out that if they only kept the traditional style and didn't prioritize convenience, it definitely wouldn't sell well. It seemed her words really moved Eric, or maybe because of his crush, he didn't hesitate to do exactly what she wanted. After the chat, Jin started having non-stop meetings to find an advertising direction that could highlight this product. Using the excuse of giving everyone a boost in the evening, our handsome director bought food and took the chance to have a private chat with his crush. The two of them went outside for some fresh air and kept talking about this product launch. They only stopped when his sister called to check in, which led them into the break room. However, before she could even rest, that hateful woman director showed up and advised her to give up on this ad. She even brought up the female lead's traumatic past to pressure her, fearing that it would affect her own reputation. Jin firmly refused to listen and decisively left in tears. She tried to calm herself down because she had a date with Minho at 9 p.m. at the National Library. To act like a gentleman, Minho took the initiative to arrive at the meeting spot early. After searching for a while, he found her sitting in a corner, looking completely soulless and lost. To avoid startling Jin, Minho sat in the other corner and picked up a book to kill time. Perhaps because she was so focused on gathering info about cosmetics, she seemed to unconsciously forget her date with the lead guy. You'd think only Jin was so focused on reading that she forgot the date, but it turns out Minho was no different. After he looked up and didn't see her there anymore, he looked around for a while and she was standing behind him, asking if he had blocked her number because she'd called him several times. After receiving the bag of medicine she needed, the girl coolly walked away. Being her clumsy self, Jin accidentally dropped a pile of books, and destiny brought the two of them even closer. Just as Minho was helping her put the books in the car, she suddenly got a stomachache. It turned out Jin suddenly remembered she'd forgotten to eat dinner. So the two of them went off together to eat and chat about their passions and the hobbies related to the work they were doing. That conversation made him remember his past passion for medical research. On the day of the shoot, Jin's staff handed out the script and warned Minho to be careful with everything in the garden when he stepped inside. Just as he finished talking to the staff, Jin's cute little car arrived, making the whole place brighten up. After changing her shoes to fit today's shoot, the girl intended to go over to her guy. Unexpectedly, Minho's love rival appeared, which didn't sit well with him. The fact that the two of them were getting close made Minho so jealous his eyes turned red, but he couldn't do anything about it. His bitterness was so obvious that even the staff around them noticed. Unable to watch any longer, Minho decided to attack with a greeting, a brotherly handshake with the director that was filled with fire in his eyes. Stepping into the shoot, the main characters were actually Jin and Eric, while the lead guy was just a background person to make everything look natural. Because of this, when filming, the local farmers weren't allowed to look at the camera, but Minho couldn't stand the sight of the closeness between his rival and his crush. Minho didn't give a damn about the camera. He just stared intensely at those two people with a look like he wanted to eat them alive. He waited forever until it was finally his turn to be in the center of the frame. The first mushroom picking went pretty smoothly, but during the second one, he lost focus because of the small talk between his rival and his crush sitting nearby. In a sudden outburst, our guy accidentally crushed several dollars worth of goods in his hand, leaving everyone stunned. Seeing this, the director had to call for a break to ease the tension. While everyone was resting for a bit, a food truck rented by the wealthy director arrived to help everyone cool off. At this point, Minho thought he'd lost to his rival, but when he saw Jin handing him water, his heart felt like it was blooming. While distributing water, the coffee shop owner Yunji felt like her business was being stolen, so she rushed over to argue face-to-face with the food truck staff. In the end, Yunji was defeated by a compliment, saying the bridge of her nose was as beautiful as a slide. At lunchtime, the neighbor lady understood the situation and pushed Jin to sit next to Minho. Even though he looked annoyed, when told to sit somewhere else, he absolutely refused to listen. Over here, our Eric also tried to squeeze in and sit next to them, creating a love triangle. Seeing this scene, the three old men sitting at the same table kept pairing this couple or that couple to see who was a better match, to the point that two of them even placed a bet on it. The meal started with a spicy chili and level 7 kimchi that made both guys gasp because it was way too spicy. Seeing this, Jin poured water, intending to give it to one of them, but Eric was quick and grabbed it first to drink, making Minho feel the heat from his mouth to his heart. The older ladies and uncles watching this scene were super entertained, even clinking their glasses because they got to witness such a good show. That evening, the female lead walked and chatted, and Eric took the chance to drop a non-stop stream of pickup lines on his crush. After that, the two had to part ways because of a phone call. So Jin went to the mushroom growing area to meet Minho and pick up a new bag of medicine. Seeing that he didn't look too good, she asked if he was uncomfortable, and if so, why did he let her come to film? Hearing that, he just bluntly said it was because of Jin. Those words made her freeze up in confusion for a moment before she quickly changed the subject to tomorrow's appointment. The two gently made a date for 9 p.m. tomorrow night at Jin's house. Then she left. The production of the mushroom essence by Minho was going very smoothly. Even the packaging looked more beautiful than before. Everything was so perfect that even Jin couldn't believe it. After finishing everything at the lab that night, Minho drove over to hand-deliver the next bag of medicine. He was planning to say something, but because she was busy with work, Jin couldn't talk, so he had to let it go. This kept happening over the following days, as he didn't want to interrupt her work. After observing for several days and noticing that Jin kept buying coffee, today he didn't just sit and wait. He took the initiative to go to a nearby grocery store to buy some for his girl. It was a total coincidence that great minds think alike because his crush had already gone a step ahead. She looked like she wanted to bring home all the coffee, energy drinks, and other energy supplements. He didn't stay quiet anymore. He had to speak up and force her to put it all back. He only let her take the lemon water he chose. So the two of them sat down and opened up to each other. Jen confessed that she didn't proactively contact him every night, and moreover, she planned to pull an all-nighter tonight. He kept encouraging her, hoping that she would believe in her own abilities for tomorrow's broadcast. Those words were like a cool breeze blowing into her almost hopeless garden, giving it a new life. Jen then went back to work preparing for the broadcast, even though it was 3 a.m. Besides Minho, Eric also wanted to help Jin stand out for tomorrow, so he didn't hesitate to buy jewelry to give to her. It seemed like things couldn't stay peaceful because Minho discovered that the microbial test results were terrible. He immediately called Jin to let her know, but because she was busy picking out clothes, she didn't notice her phone. Since he couldn't get through, Minho had to risk everything to go stop the broadcast that was set to happen in an hour to avoid risk for the company and Jin. His director also helped him notify Eric about this, hoping the director of this product could stop it before a disaster happened. Over here, when Minho arrived and was about to take the elevator, it had already closed. Without thinking twice, he had to keep climbing the stairs, asking people around about the broadcast room. When he got there, he hurriedly spoke about the unfavorable development of the microorganisms and demanded the broadcast be stopped. However, Jen was still determined to go to the broadcast room. Surprisingly, she announced that today they wouldn't be selling the essence everyone had been waiting for so long. While wondering how to see Jin, Minho accidentally witnessed her live stream on a nearby screen. The product info Jin was talking about was of great interest to everyone. However, the live stream wasn't for selling, but simply a product introduction. Because of this, the company director was beyond furious and cursed at Jin. "What on earth are you doing? Can you take responsibility for this yourself?" Even the chairwoman herself stepped up and threatened her. An MC must focus on every second to sell goods, not to advertise. To protect Minho's product, Jin could only stay silent and leave. Outside, the lead guy was already waiting. He couldn't hold back and stepped forward to hug Jin tightly. That hug seemed to warm the female lead's wounded heart. "You did a great job, Jin. You were amazing today." The scene seemed to freeze as Jin burst into tears. The two of them then sat on a bench and talked. "How did you know where I was and find me so easily?" Without answering directly, Minho steered the conversation in another direction. Two people who used to be sworn enemies were now unusually connected. In contrast to that piece, Eric rushed like the wind to his mushroom growing site, entering with an aggressive mindset, determined to clear this matter up. Who would have thought the manager there would start playing tricks, claiming that these numbers were normal and nothing was wrong? When he got back to the office, he was immediately roasted by his sister before he could even answer. You'd think he'd take it quietly, but when he heard the name Jin mentioned by his sister, Eric's eyes widened and he shot back, "If you lay a finger on her, I'm going to lose it with you right now." The next morning, the director held a major shareholders meeting to discuss last night's events. After negotiating for a while, they decided to retest the product before releasing it to the market. Immediately, news of the Miracle Essence by Minho successfully took over social media. Along with that, the person who had to take full responsibility was Jin because she had promoted it. Not knowing the storm was about to hit, the female lead was still casually editing her drafts. Over here, Minho was also racking his brain for a solution. Not knowing what to do, he went to find the only YouTuber in the village. It turned out he only came to borrow a phone to call Jin. He didn't realize her phone was completely out of battery at that moment. As soon as she plugged it in, a ton of interview requests popped up, making her a bit panicked, but then Minho suddenly called to comfort her. "Before you go to sleep, remember to wear socks so you don't have nightmares." Hearing the other end being so worried about her, Jin unconsciously flashed a bright smile. Knowing his crush was okay, Minho felt somewhat relieved. The very next morning, he went to see Eric to ask about Jin. Even though Eric was blaming Minho, saying his haste led to this, Minho didn't care about that, because in his eyes, there was only worry for Jin. And that worry was justified, because right now, the female lead was preparing to be questioned by the board of directors. Thousands of complaints after the incident were continuously pouring onto the company. Every excuse from the female lead seemed unconvincing, so they decided to terminate their partnership with her. Facing this, Jin felt she had done the right thing, so she just stood up and left amidst the blame from the board. Her colleagues heard the news and tried their best to cheer her up. Although she acted strong, she immediately went secretly to a psychologist to vent. When she got home, she found her director had been waiting at the door for a long time. That lady even acted super familiar with the house, constantly walking around to look at everything in Jin's home. This made it an eyesore for her, and she thought the lady was gloating over this failure. After a few words, she kept advising her to give up the cosmetics industry, which made her emotions explode as she vented all her anger, forcing the lady to leave. Over here, Minho was also having a massive headache after yesterday's events. He kept staring at the microbial results from that night, to the point that even when the director walked in, he didn't even bother to look up. Seeing this, the man had to drag Minho out for a drink to help him relax. Despite trying to advise him, he only received anger from the lead guy. Unexpectedly, because of this failure, Jin thought her life was a mess, so she went out onto the street where many cars were passing. Her troubled mind caused Jin to have a relapse of her old illness, and she accidentally called Minho instead of her mother. Hearing her faint voice, he tried to stay on the line and called her name to help the other side stay conscious. The girl was now just constantly calling for her mom and crossing the road in a daze. Luckily, he found her in time. But no matter how he shook her, Jin couldn't escape the image of her mother in her mind. So he had to hold this little girl to help her snap out of it, then put on her shoes and took her home. Early in the morning, when she opened her eyes, Jin felt a stinging pain in her feet, which reminded her that last night she had unconsciously taken all the prescribed medicine. Opening the door, she saw Minho waiting there for a long time, and she wanted to avoid him, not wanting to mention yesterday's memory loss. Her emotions were completely exploding after the recent failure. Losing everything in just one day made it seem impossible for her to get back up, leaving Minho only able to stay silent. Aside from the two of them, things on Eric's side weren't great either, because he was also being scolded by his sister for this. He felt pressured because he was always seen as a piece of gum that his sister chewed when she was stressed. To help Jin stabilize her mood, Minho took her to the neighbor lady's house to get away from the bustling city. Before she could even relax for a minute, she suddenly fainted due to malnutrition and lack of sleep. When she opened her eyes, Jin saw the neighbor aunties and uncles of Minho clapping loudly because she had woken up. When she left the clinic to decide where to stay tonight, the people around her kept finding reasons to turn her down. After going around in circles, the little granddaughter standing in the distance couldn't watch any longer and just blurted out that she should stay at Minho's house. Thanks to everyone's plotting, they successfully got Minho and Jin to stay together. In this situation, both were extremely flustered. Although he gave her the bed, she still felt shy and refused, only wanting to lie on the floor. After eating, both went for a walk to digest the food and keep from getting fat. As they walked, she said she must have been punished by the universe, because since becoming a famous MC, sleep had seemingly become an extreme luxury for her. Over time, her body had started to get used to that routine. She felt that now, even if she wanted to return to a normal routine, it would be too hard for her. Minho comforted her, saying that as long as she could think that way, things could already start to improve. He understood her so well because he also used to have to take medication to sleep, just like her. But now, he no longer needed it. So, he also wanted to help her out during this difficult time. Meanwhile, after a conversation with his sister, even though Eric had poured his heart out, his sister still wanted him to return to France, leaving him feeling completely helpless. Returning to the house just as the female lead had finished her shower, Minho had already prepared a very scientific healing schedule for her and required her to follow it every day. First was jogging and taking the dog for a walk. Second was setting up a sleep support pillow. Third was planting lavender to help Jin get a gentle night's sleep. He even swapped her ice cream flavor to lavender instead of chocolate. Even a ban on sneaking coffee was something unprecedented. While they were meditating, Minho also had to prepare sleep-inducing frequencies for her. Thanks to all that dedicated care, she was still wide awake until 4 a.m. tonight. Just as she was about to get a drink of water, Jen peeked through the door and saw this guy was still awake out there, doing a bunch of weird things she couldn't understand. He kept stomping his feet in a strange gait, sawing wood in the middle of the night, feeling up the pillars, and even banging his head against the corner of a pillar like a total weirdo. Having to run every single morning left her pretty exhausted and sore all over. Some days she even wanted to go on strike and just go back to rest, but there was no escaping it. Even the dog, Bai Ma, had it better, just sitting around chewing on toys all day. Despite moving constantly like that, it didn't really help her sleep much. Since she was tossing and turning, she decided to head to the living room for some air, only to find her partner wasn't sleeping either, but was sitting there intently reading a book. You'd think the two of them would get closer and start chatting about the topic in the book, but actually, Jin was reading it to him. It seemed the book was so good that both of them fell asleep next to each other without even realizing it. By the time she woke up, she was spooked and quickly scurried away. Minho saw her acting all sneaky, which made him remember how she had fallen asleep on his 70 centimeters wide shoulders last night. Because of that, this guy's arm felt completely paralyzed this morning. After his paralyzed arm recovered, he turned into a responsible man again, cooking for his crush. Since he was busy with work today, she had nobody to hang out with, so she decided to tidy up the house a bit. But maybe this guy was a total neat freak, because even though Jin tried to scrub the place, the house was already sparkling and there was nothing left to clean. Out of pure boredom, she decided to go snooping around everywhere. She suddenly stumbled upon the sock she wore at the hospital that day. Suddenly, Jin realized that every corner of the tables, chairs, and pillars, even anything that could be dangerous to her, had been carefully padded and shielded by him. By evening, when Minho came home, he found her sprawled out on the sofa, sleeping soundly and totally dead to the world. He pulled the curtains, turned off the lights, and carefully tucked her in with a blanket, trying his best not to wake her up. No matter how careful he was, Jin still woke up and started acting all clingy with him. In a cute way, Jin took the opportunity to give him a kiss before he could even put up a defense. Then, as if to dodge responsibility, after the kiss, Jin just passed back out like nothing had ever happened between them. Before Minho could even put his guard up, he got kissed out of nowhere, which made him freeze for a few seconds. By the time he snapped out of it, he carried his crush back to her room. Because he was too busy replaying that moment in his head, he slammed right into the wooden door and stumbled, almost falling over. He looked so embarrassed and pitiful. Getting back to his room, he still couldn't calm down at all. You'd think he'd sleep well, but he ended up tossing and turning until morning. And yet, the next morning, the person who caused all this trouble just casually said hi like nothing had ever happened. This made Minho feel even more awkward, but he still had to try to act cool, even though he was a total mess inside. Even when they were jogging together, he was so flustered that he kept tripping over his own feet and just left the dog behind to run ahead. Just resting and talking for a bit was enough to make all the words from last night run non-stop in his head. In the end, Minho had to bail before his brain's CPU overloaded. It turns out that when you have feelings for someone, those close and intimate actions start making your heart flutter. For example, just sitting 12 centimeters apart made Minho so flustered he practically fell backward, leaving Jin totally confused. Just as they were about to have another romantic moment, a third wheel suddenly crashed the party and ruined the romantic vibe. This person even demanded to eat with them. While eating, Jinji noticed that Minho couldn't handle spicy food, which surprised the female lead. Then, Jinji and Minho started talking together, creating a vibe like they were an old married couple having a heart-to-heart, which made Jin annoyed. But honestly, she didn't know that he was still paying close attention to her every single move. Over on Eric's side, you'd think he'd have to give in and go back according to his sister's arrangement. But surprisingly, those suitcases that were supposedly full of clothes were actually packed with his favorite vinyl records, which he sent back to his sister as a challenge. Right after turning around, he met with Jin's management company and demanded that this eye cream promotion had to be done specifically by her, no matter what. Today, the vibe all over the little village seemed pretty lively. It turned out they were gearing up for the Neighborhood Unity Festival, like a big brother-sister bonding event. However, Minho didn't really want to join in, even though the uncles tried to convince him that he was the soul of the festival. Jin didn't just sit around either. She joined the festival prep with a super excited mood. Jinji saw her constantly hovering over Minho, which made this girl super annoyed, and she threw some shade, asking why she didn't just go back to work instead of clinging to him all the time. Minho still had way too much work, from personal stuff to village matters, so this girl told her off. Don't rely and depend on him too much, which was making this girl roll her eyes. Surprisingly, the director of Minho's company also showed up to check things out at today's prep. His main goal was just to act all fancy and show off in front of everyone, and to score points with a coffee shop owner, when he accidentally spotted Jin here. Hearing the news that she was living with his employee almost made him choke, because before, Minho had literally said out of his own mouth how much he hated her. This whole thing made the lead guy feel like he really wanted to slap his past self in the face. But to keep up his image, he had to turn around and walk away without being able to defend himself. He went back to the kitchen to enjoy the meal prepared by his wife. His crush. Right off the bat, it looked totally wrong visually, and when he tried to eat it, the taste felt like a punch in the mouth. Watching this, Jin knew exactly where her cooking skills were at, so she tried to find a way to dump all this dramatic food. Minho couldn't bear to let her down, so he tried to convince her to let him be the human trash can and scarf the whole pile down. While trying to convince her, he suddenly bumped into the edge of the table, making Jin wonder why he kept bumping into things constantly. She even accidentally had a slip of the tongue and said that even last night, when he carried her into the bedroom, he bumped right into the door and stumbled over. Hearing this, the vibe instantly froze. It turned out she actually remembered last night too. Flipping back to the truth about that kiss last night, it turned out she had waited a long time for him to come home to talk and hadn't taken her meds. Hearing the noise when he came back, she just pretended to be asleep. So in reality, she was watching his every move, even witnessing him tumble over because she was too scared to face her own actions. Snapping back to the present, knowing the cat was out of the bag, she still tried to act nonchalant, turned around to leave, and then bumped right into the edge of a chair, making everything super awkward. The company got a direct order from Eric, so they sent 2 people close to Jin to try and drag her back to continue live streaming. If it wasn't her, he wouldn't accept anyone else. Today, Eric also came to join the festival, which was a massive eyesore for Minho. He couldn't figure out why Jin had cut ties with his company and his product, yet this guy was still trailing after his crush. He even rode the wave and joined the village's Unity Festival right alongside Jin. This love triangle was fully taken in by her 2 close coworkers, making them totally understand why she didn't want to go back to work. This festival was a competition between Daeokbung Village 1 and Village 2, as they battled it out for the title of the most united village in the area. Every single year, Daeokbung Village 2 always won and took home the double-door fridge and the tractor. Winning back-to-back made them super cocky, but Village 1 wasn't slacking either. Today, Village 1 debuted their lead guy, who had total F4 heartthrob vibes. His aura made all the ladies from both villages literally swoon. The competition kicked off with major hype from both teams. This year, they were dead set on snagging the latest model TV. The first match was arm wrestling. Village 2 sent out a massive, beefy dude to wrestle, and repping Village 1 was Kwangmo. The big beefy guy saw that he was twice the size of his opponent, so he cockily warned Kwangmo that he better just give up early. The arm wrestling match was incredibly fierce. At first, Kwangmo was losing and was about to give up, but when he saw PD Sungmi cheering for him and even using her ultimate move, a wink, the guy got totally buffed with power, making a super badass comeback win. The next round was women's arm wrestling. Village 2 sent out a girl who was an Asian Games reserve athlete, and Village 1 had no clue who to send. Sungmi suddenly stepped out with a super fired up attitude, but everyone who looked at her thought she was going to get knocked out early. You'd think Village 2 had it in the bag, but Sungmi acted completely ice cold and took down her opponent without even blinking, leaving the whole village completely shocked. Even Kwangmo felt his heart flutter, like he was flashing back to the first time he ever hit on a girl, taking him straight back to his youth and his first love. It turned out that at this festival, it wasn't just Kwangmo getting whipped. Director Mugon was also nervously trying to act cool while taking care of his crush at the hydration station. Winning back-to-back got Village 1 totally hyped up. But seeing that nobody volunteered for the next word-guessing game, Eric, who just got back from overseas, was dragged into playing while totally clueless. Even though nobody understood his acting, Grandma Hadak only needed to see a few moves to guess it in a flash. They thought it'd be an easy win, but when it got to a long idiom, everyone figured it was a lost cause. And yet, Eric just touched her hand and she guessed it instantly, in exactly 1 minute and 36 seconds. This race hit the crunch time, with the score at 3-2, favoring Village 1. Jin and Minho were the ones playing the guessing game this time, right from the very first question. When he saw her point to her lips, it made him freeze up and remember that kiss, making his mind a total mess. He totally skipped it right on the very first question. For the next question, Jin kept pointing at her lips, making him only think about kissing, so he couldn't guess it and ended up skipping again. It seemed like the universe was testing him, because the third question was also about lips, and he skipped that one too. Even the fourth question made him think it was a phrase to express feelings. So right in front of the whole crowd, he yelled out the words in his heart. "I like your lips," even though the actual answer was speaking kind words, receiving beautiful meanings. Minho's answer managed to tie the score for both villages. This was too much for the whole village to handle, so they had to smack some sense into him. During the break, Jin and her coworkers went over to Jinji's booth and accidentally saw her trying her best to convince an older guy to buy a hairdryer. Watching the way the girl convinced the customer kind of brought back Jin's own inspiration for selling. Next up was the final game to decide the village's victory, called the relay race. The first person out of the gate was Jinji. Then she successfully passed the baton to Eric. He kept passing his opponents and handed it off to Minho. Using his long legs, Minho ran way ahead of the competition. You'd think he was ready to pass the baton to Jin, as planned. But instead, out of pure panic, he totally ruined the village's win by just running straight off with a baton. After the festival season, it seemed like our couples were getting ready to level up. Take Sumi's couple, for instance. On the flip side, Minho and Jin didn't even dare to start a conversation with each other. He was even pulled aside by another girl to a corner to talk privately, which made her feel pretty bummed out. Seeing this, Sumi also pulled her aside to chat about how hard she used to work in the past, even using meds to boost her mood. But now she didn't need them anymore. It looked like Minho's efforts had actually helped her out a bit. Jin said goodbye to her coworkers after that, and then surprisingly, Eric walked up to talk and apologize for the product incident that got her fired. He expressed that he wanted to take her back to UN together, and on top of that, he had considered launching a new product so she could keep being the sales representative. On Minho's side, the vibe was pretty dramatic too. Little Jinji kept expressing her feelings non-stop, from being grateful to straight up liking him to his face, even though she knew he had already noticed her secret feelings for him a long time ago. Minho didn't know what to say except just listen, apologize, and then let her walk away. Over here, Jin had also turned down going back to Seiyun with Eric. She felt that right now, she finally felt like she was okay. She wanted to just enjoy these beautiful moments for herself. Eric bluntly said he would wait for her, even though it was something he really hated saying, regardless of the fact that she walked away before him. Suddenly, a text from Eric's sister popped up. It turned out his sister had found a picture of him and her chatting in this little village. Looks like a rough ride is coming up ahead from Eric's sister. Coincidentally, that night the two of them came home together, and at first they were both pretty awkward. Jin kept asking why he was treating her so nicely. He didn't answer, and instead fired back a question, asking why she decided to kiss him that night. And then it was her turn to be speechless. She admitted that she hadn't taken the meds he provided. Her heart was beating out of her chest, and she couldn't face seeing him, which is why she pretended to fall asleep and not remember. She frustratingly said that because of his flustered and avoidant behavior, she also pretended to forget, so that neither of them would be freaked out. Understanding Jin's heart, he decisively gave her a soft kiss. Right after that, the two of them started making out intensely with all the trimmings. Even though it was just a packet of cold medicine, both of them seemed super shy in that space. You'd think they would just say goodnight and go to their own rooms. But nope, Jin and Minho ended up staying up and chatting the entire night. These two old souls invited each other outside to read books and chill. Minho took this chance to ask straight up, "What's the deal with that director in you?" Knowing he was jealous, Jin gently answered back, which slowly cooled off his jealousy. The two read for a bit and then passed out sleeping on top of each other, completely forgetting to even take their meds. Over here, Eric aggressively bolted back to the company to meet his sister. Even though they were family, Eric was totally straightforward and slammed down that photo. Seeing her little brother acting more reckless than smart, the sister immediately took charge and forced him to leave. It turned out this sister had never wanted her little brother to get his hands on the Korean business market for a long time. Carrying that total boss CEO energy, the sister barked out her orders and left cold as ice. The next day, the YouTube bro who was snooping around Minho's house got unexpectedly busted by the little girl, Soma. While the two were bickering back and forth, Minho and Jin also just stepped out of the house. You'd think they were having a massive fight, but surprisingly, it was just a game, guessing which hand the stone was in. As if trying to flatter Jin, Minho played along, pretending to think hard and then guessing wrong. His reward was getting to hold Jin's hand, and they just walked like that all the way to the farm. Minho was shy, so he only let her hold his hand for a little bit. Looking at that PDA, there wasn't a single person who wasn't totally jealous. As soon as she got to the farm, Jin was happily welcomed by the local farmer ladies. Knowing this couple spent the night in the same house, everyone was nosy and asked, "What did you two do last night?" Right at that awkward moment, the YouTube bro rushed in to stir up the vibe. A little while later, Kwangmo was happily slacking off from work and ran outside to play. PD Sungmi, who was in the studio, didn't hesitate to take a super cute selfie and send it just to win him over. The second he saw that pic, Kwangmo acted like a little kid, happily running around to show it off to the whole village. The first person he went to find was his buddy, Dr. Mook. Taking his friend's advice, Kwangmo proactively called to order the product that PD Sungmi had recommended. Over here, Minho was sitting and sorting mushrooms when Jin hurried over to tease him. "Could you take a day off tomorrow so we can go out on a date?" Minho didn't even think for a second and instantly agreed. No matter how many requests she had, Minho didn't hesitate to nod his head. Seeing Jin ask him to watch a late-night movie, Minho also took the chance to drop a little flirt. "Instead of watching a movie like that, why don't you just watch me?" That line made the air thick with sweet PDA vibes. Seeing things getting a bit too steamy, Jin had to sprint straight outside to cool off. By chance, she bumped into little Soma practicing her reading out in the middle of the field. You'd think she was just reviewing old lessons, but Soma had the ambition to become the class president in the upcoming election. Living up to her name as a pro online seller, Jin immediately opened a crash course on body language. The very first lesson was learning how to make a super convincing campaign promise, which is basically the art of sweet-talking people. The second lesson was eye contact and smiling. It sounds easy, but it was the biggest challenge for Soma. Her shifty eyes refused to open up and look directly at other people. Knowing this wasn't working out, she moved on to the next lesson, which was spelling practice. Even with a mask on, she could still teach Soma how to pronounce things perfectly. Just imagine your idol is standing right in front of you and scream. These two sisters kept practicing like that until late afternoon, and then they swapped contact info. If you have any trouble, just call me. I'll support you all the way. At this point, Jin went to the garden to visit Minho and take the chance to admire his handsome, focused working face. Seeing him working so hard without getting tired made her remember her own dedicated work ethic from back in the day. Seeing her there, he told her to come over so he could show her the ropes. But look at that. These two weren't working at all. They were making out right there in the sunny garden. This kiss even got an extra wet and refreshing vibe thanks to the garden's automatic sprinkler system. When they got back home, even though they were in different rooms, they still managed to chat with each other before falling asleep. The next morning, Jin met up with Soma to cheer her up. Even though at first the little girl was pretty shy about her looks, Jin told her that winning or losing comes down to sincerity, not Soma's physical appearance. Whether she wore a mask or not wouldn't affect the selection. Carrying a determined mindset, the little girl, although nervous, still tried her best to introduce herself. At first, she was trembling with fear, but when she remembered Jin's earlier advice, the little girl started speaking up. She promised to help the whole class if she got elected, and flashed a cute smile from behind her mask, which completely surprised everyone and got them super hyped for her. The result was pretty much a no-brainer when the little girl snagged the class president spot she'd always wanted. She even flexed a little by comforting her opponent. After this whole thing, Soma also made some new friends, which had her showing off to literally everyone. As older siblings, watching her just made them feel super proud too. Seeing her boyfriend working so hard also gave Jin the urge to get back to her old grind. While they were talking, her dad called to check in because he hadn't seen her come home. It seems like their father-daughter relationship wasn't very close. Hearing his caring words, she just coldly hung up the phone. This reaction made Minho ask about their relationship, and he took the chance to ask since when she had been taking medication. Jin opened up, saying she'd been taking it since 5 years ago because of an incident with a senior in the industry. When that senior injured her arm, Jin stepped in with a morning moisturizer product, pairing it with a collaborative broadcast featuring a celebrity. At that time, it was her boss, Mi-Iwa. But ironically, this product turned out to be defective, bringing in tons of mixed reviews, and even causing absolute outrage among the customers who bought it. It turns out that famous MC was actually her own mother. She would rather believe that her daughter took a bribe from the manufacturer than believe she was a victim in this whole mess, all because this incident cost her her job. On top of that, she no longer wanted to see Jin as her daughter and kept blaming her, saying that everything was completely her fault, even though she tried her best to make everything perfect so there wouldn't be a single mistake in her work later on. Because of that mother, Jin's life hasn't had a single moment of peace. Honestly, after that drama, Jin became totally traumatized. She always obsessively double-checked everything before going live. But still, when Minho showed up, he made her feel way more secure. Even when she didn't believe in herself, he always had her back and encouraged her to keep going, which touched her deeply. Hearing those words, he tried to act chill on the outside, but when he went back to his room, he kept thinking about his own past. Coincidentally, the ones who created this exact product were none other than his own research lab. The next morning, while Jin was rambling on about breakfast, Jinji barged right into the house. She talked about how this morning, Soma suddenly got a crazy allergic reaction, itching so bad that she scratched herself until she was bleeding all over. Hearing the news, Minho hurriedly ran off. Jin was about to run after her, but that girl didn't want her to go and blamed her, saying this whole thing was all her fault. It turned out Soma ate something with eggs or wheat because her friends pressured her into it, which caused such a severe allergic reaction that she had to be hospitalized. The two sisters argued in the hospital for a bit until Jinji felt too overwhelmed and ran out of the hospital room. She blamed it on the fact that he brought Jin home, which is why all this drama was happening in the first place. Jinji sluggishly walked back home, only to bump into the female lead sitting there waiting for her. Even so, she still dropped some harsh words and then went inside, slamming the door shut. When he got back to the hospital, Minho saw the situation between Jinji and her sister, making his heart feel super heavy too. He opened the door to the house and saw her already sitting there. Without a single word of blame, he just gently sat next to her in silence, listening to Jin blame herself and break down all over again. This made him have no idea what to do. He could only quietly cry and finally hid in his room, overthinking until morning. Suddenly, he got a call from Director Mugan, dropping the news that the index results for this new product didn't pass either. He immediately called Eric back to talk about the product failing the test, pointing out that it wasn't completely Jin's fault. The news of this test also reached Eric's sister. She kept grilling him on why he still refused to come back home, even when things had gotten this bad. Eric just stayed silent and firmly promised that he would fix this issue. While she was sitting there chewing on her own pain, Jin suddenly got a heads up from her coworker with a link to the press conference from Eric's company. Unexpectedly, he bluntly admitted that the recent batch of products totally didn't guarantee quality. At the same time, he praised Jin's quick thinking when she decided to switch the sales broadcast into a Q&A chat with the customers. Thanks to this whole incident, the company also wanted to drag her back, because right now, she was the hottest name trending on the search charts. Even director Hong had to schedule a face-to-face meet with Jin to talk about the article. Even though she was the exact person who kicked her out, now she was the one begging her to come back to work. She promised to meet all her demands as long as she would go live for the company again. Hearing that, Jin didn't hesitate at all. She just quietly turned it down, because right now, she needed to heal after everything that had happened. That night, she started sleepwalking and wandered all the way to the front door. Unconsciously, Jin's mouth kept apologizing to Soma non-stop, which made Minho's heart ache terribly. Early the next morning, she woke up super surprised because she had no idea when he came back, acting like she totally blacked out and forgot yesterday's events. He just gently chatted and confided in her, like any other day. However, his face couldn't keep a steady emotion because he had seen what went down last night. He kept obsessing over her unconscious self-blame, to the point where he couldn't even focus on his work. The fact that Jin refused to go back to the company got PD Sungmi and Eric super worried. Unable to wait any longer, he scheduled to meet her that very day to check in and see if she was actually okay or not. After that, he just dropped some gentle, comforting words and didn't even ask anything about whether she would come back or not. On the flip side, he started suspecting that Minho was the real reason she didn't want to go back to the daily grind. Back at the house, Jin started packing up the reference books and documents she had been using. Suddenly, she found a picture of Minho taken with his old coworkers. In the end, the secret he hadn't had a chance to tell her was discovered just like this. Over on their side, Jinji and her sister were happily chatting with each other. Soma accidentally let it slip, bragging that it was all thanks to Coach Jin that she was able to snag this class president spot. Because of this, Jinji met up with Jin and confessed that the reason she hated the female lead was because back in the day, she listened to Jin's rock-solid promotion about a moisturizing cream that was supposedly safe for kids' skin. Without hesitating, Jinji decided to buy it for Soma to use, and the result was Soma's skin looking the way it does now. Even so, Jinji spilled all her feelings and mentioned that she could now go back to Seoul instead of staying in this village anymore. Jin came back only to find her man putting on a super gloomy face without saying a word. She thought he'd stay quiet as a mouse, but then he brought up how she refused to go back because she felt guilty towards Soma for promoting that moisturizing cream. Out of nowhere, he admitted that he was the one who manufactured that trash product. Despite that, she calmly pulled out the picture he took with his coworkers and told him that she already knew. Riding that wave, he casually told her he wanted her to go back and continue her career. Those words left her in total disbelief as to why he didn't even try to hold her back or show any heartbreak at the thought of her leaving. He took the blame for absolutely everything, hoping she would pack up and leave their shared house to return to the place where she truly shines. This scene made Minho feel suffocated and dazed. He felt eaten up by guilt, thinking this happened because of his mistake. To help Minho stay less negative, director Ji Yu stepped up to take responsibility for the incident, like a hero. But just a few days later, the director went missing, leaving everyone shocked. Out of pure despair, the director chose to end his own life alone in the lab. It turns out this guy didn't have the guts to face the fact that he had greedily and intentionally changed the formula for the ingredients in the cream. To make up for the mistake of that greed, he chose death to dump all the responsibility onto his remaining colleagues. After those terrifying events, Jin packed her things and went back home to her father right after being insulted. Even though her father tried his best to check in and show care, asking why his plum wine jar was so sad, she didn't care at all, acting like a rebellious daughter. Jin even stopped eating and only thought about Minho. During her sleep, the people from that terrible event kept appearing in her dreams. Those people also crept into Minho's dreams, making him wake up and rush to take sedatives. Early in the morning, before he could do anything, two uncles told him about two massive gifts: a TV and a crystal-clear sound system given to the villagers by the wealthy lady MC Jin, which really moved him. Today was also the day Jin returned to her job. Amidst the joy from her coworkers, everyone was laughing and joking as if their mother had come home. Even though she was begged by her colleagues to go out for a celebration dinner, Jin turned them down because work was keeping her busy. Not wanting this little girl to starve while working, her sister Song Mi had to carry fried chicken legs all the way to the office. Feeling someone care for her that much, Jin couldn't help but open up about how she and Minho had broken up because they were haunted by the past. Because of this recent failure, Mi Chul went straight to her younger brother's office and had people pack his stuff, wanting him to get lost back to France. Eric stayed stubborn and challenged his sister to go ahead and try to ruin him. The one who was really falling apart right now was Jin. Her old illness flared up again. Unconsciously, she tried to call her mother, but her hand dialed Min-ho's number instead. Jin poured her heart out in the dark of night, which deeply moved Min-ho and made him feel heartbroken. Because of this, the next morning, Min-ho practiced a secret nurturing art by using some blood to feed a plant. Yet, Min-ho acted like it was no big deal, coolly bandaging himself and then visiting the sisters, Jinji and Som-yi. After fighting with his sister in Seoul, Eric, wanting to investigate who put the microorganisms in the makeup back then, intentionally met with the factory manager for a face-to-face talk. Ironically, since he had no power left, even a lowly manager didn't care about him. He thought he wouldn't have anyone left by his side. Surprisingly, his assistant wanted to keep fighting with him. Before this, Mi-chul never saw him as anything, daily insulting him and seeing him as a useless person. Only Eric had kept him around for that long. This fight was pretty big, so Eric had to turn into a simulated beggar. Coincidentally, fate pushed him into living near Jin. Using the excuse that she saved him by fixing the electronic lock he couldn't open, this slick guy invited her to eat, aiming to close the distance. Surprisingly, this time Jin didn't hesitate to go eat black bean noodles with the French-style manager to get rid of the bad luck. The recent scandals had really damaged the reputation of Mugon's herb company. A ton of contracts were being cancelled or failing to get signed successfully. But who is Mugon? He's known as the Lord of Sales and the King of Mind Games, so he still managed to successfully set up a meeting to discuss a contract with a partner from Hong Kong. Knowing that Min-ho doesn't like interacting with society, the older brother planned to let the guy stay home. But this time, the lead guy had made up his mind and decided to demand to go along. Back at the company, while Jin was working, she accidentally found a book belonging to the boyfriend who just dumped her, along with some neat notes. Every single word in there made her heart want to turn into a microwave. Maybe because she manifested too much, they coincidentally saw each other the next day at the same location for signing and working. Our two leads were also a bit stunned to see each other there. You'd think there would be a passionate makeout session, but Min-ho was determined to be a cold guy. He gave his ex-girlfriend the cold shoulder, but he still longingly glanced back once before actually leaving. The director brother saw his younger brother suddenly acting all cold with Jin and got curious. What's with his attitude, kid? Min-ho honestly and bravely admitted he had told her everything about the past and then thought he had made her suffer, so he was doing this on purpose so he would leave. You'd think she had forgotten him, but nope, she still picked up the phone to make the first move. You girls should just watch this. Don't try to copy it, or you'll get a bitter result and cry at night. Don't say I didn't warn you. It turns out this guy had been giving out Kwang Mo's number instead of his own. Ironically, the phone number Jin thought belonged to her mom was actually Min-ho's. Looking back at the call logs and recordings, she remembered all the hazy memories. All those things Jin shared with her mom, it turns out the person on the other end was Min-ho the whole time. In the last call, besides her unconscious venting, Jin also heard his confession of feelings for her. Understanding his feelings for her and remembering their moments together, she realized how big Min-ho's love really was. Jin didn't hesitate to find a way to meet him. To do that, she faked being dazed on a main road and set a meeting in a park to test him. And the result? Never underestimate a simp. He'd drop everything to search for you everywhere. The moment they met, they were like 3-year-olds. They just cried in front of each other, sharing their feelings and happy tears as if they hadn't seen each other for hundreds of years. This cotton candy romance was even sweeter than before. Even the director sitting nearby felt the happiness. After a quick morning air kiss for energy, Min-ho ran right into a powerful rival in the business world. That was none other than Mi-chul, Eric's annoying sister. She threatened that if he didn't sign with her company, he wouldn't be able to sign with anyone else in Korea, and then mockingly walked away. They say when people are in love, they stick together the most, even if they're busy, and Jin was no exception. She kept checking her phone but didn't see a text from her careless boyfriend. It turns out this guy was busy thinking about the contract from Mi-chul and didn't pay attention to anyone, even his girlfriend who was daydreaming and wandering around. The brother Jang-ho, who is now a high-ranking director in the cosmetics industry across Southeast Asia, returned to save the company. Just when the business was about to go under, a benefactor appeared, and in a flash, everything was solved. Min-ho finally had some free time to pick up Jin from work. Coincidentally, just as he reached the apartment lobby, he ran right into that recent love rival, who was also his girlfriend's neighbor. Knowing this, his brain started running non-stop with countless scenarios. Just mentioning the keyword neighbor made Min-ho think of a movie called The Helpless Husband and the Lucky Neighbor. Eric constantly uses being a neighbor as an excuse to hire a chef to cook pizza for his wife. The jealousy inside Min-ho is like a magnet, only positive and negative poles. While waiting in a long line to eat lunch because it was too crowded, Mugon demanded to go to the shop next door instead of waiting. This really rubbed Min-ho the wrong way when he was forced to keep waiting. Standing alone with his thoughts, he thought about how his crush relied on that other guy when things got tough. Just because they are neighbors and he helps out, he constantly imagined countless scenarios where that random Eric guy takes advantage of the situation to build a strong bond. He didn't realize the person he was about to be salty about, Jin, was already busy making a living on TV again. Hearing this made Min-ho super proud, and he even supported her by booking 3 rooms for a vacation. That night, finding out this guy blew money on her, Jin was both touched and opened up to him. She was having trouble sleeping again, so she would keep working until she was exhausted enough to pass out. Hearing that news, Minho saw his chance and drove dozens of miles to her house just because he wanted to have an all-nighter learning to spell with his girlfriend. After he arrived, Jin was also super surprised. She didn't think Minho would actually show up. She curiously asked about his farm, but Minho didn't want to talk about it anymore. He went through the trouble of leaving the village to be with her after all. And then the scene that was bound to happen happened. In front of that suggestive bed, Jin was too shy and quickly hid under the covers. She thought Minho would tire her out until she fell asleep. Instead, our guy pulled out a wooden temple block and banged on it until she finally fell asleep. Jin asked him what on earth he was doing. Just when she was craving that, the guy totally failed to read the room. But finally, so Jin could sleep peacefully, Minho just gave her a soft kiss on the lips and said, "I'll just stay here with you." By the next morning, because her boyfriend's kiss helped her sleep soundly, Jin had a happy morning jog. She even ran into director Eric, while Minho, who knows how he ended up sleeping, was lying on the floor. The first thing he did after waking up was raid the fridge, but it felt like every dish he tasted was way too salty. To fix his taste buds, he went to the supermarket himself to buy some food, and unexpectedly ran into a man who very enthusiastically guided him on what to buy. Because they had similar tastes in cooking, they both picked out almost the exact same groceries. The older man cheerfully asked, "Are you having rice wraps with veggies for lunch?" Minho blurted out a complaint that the side dishes at home were too salty, so he thought wrapping them up would taste better. The surprise was when they both returned home and appeared in front of the same apartment entrance. It was even more of a coincidence when they faced each other and headed toward the exact same unit. The man immediately flipped and asked, "So the food I cook is that salty?" Right then, Jin and Eric also just returned from their jog together and witnessed this awkward scene. As a result, during the lunch preparations, Minho was totally pushed to the sidelines. He didn't realize the man he met this morning was actually Jin's dad. Consequently, he silently lost major points for his first meeting with the parent. Meanwhile, Eric took the chance to try Jin's dad's dishes. He smooth-talked his way in, praising how flavorful the food was, scoring points instantly. Minho naturally can't eat salty and spicy food, but he couldn't lose points in front of his father-in-law, so he decided to ask for a plate of the stir-fry the dad made. Eric wouldn't back down either. The result was the two guys competing to see who could swallow more of the father-in-law's food. So Minho stuffed a bunch of salty food into his system, then had to chug a whole bottle of water just to avoid getting kidney stones. Jin worryingly asked why he tried so hard in front of her dad. He could never criticize the food her dad cooked. After the meal, Eric and Jin's dad left the apartment, leaving the two of them alone to be romantic. The thing that made Minho much better than Eric was that he was free to be in his girlfriend's house without worrying about that rival. Then he sat with her to look at her childhood photos. Jin talked about how she used to frequently call the number written in her diary to vent. She just wondered why her mother's number became Minho's. He asked her a question. "Do you know why I didn't hang up the first time I got your call? I felt your despair. You seemed to really miss your mom, didn't you?" Jin changed the subject, saying it was all just the meds. Right now, she didn't even hate her anymore. The next day, at Minho's workplace, he signed a supply contract for raw materials with his old partners, Gozen Bio and Hosmek. This should have happened a long time ago, but only now did Minho provide the materials to them. Plus, after signing, he even had to take a commemorative photo. Otherwise, it wouldn't look like Minho valued their long friendship at all. After signing the contract, the three brothers went out for some barbecue and chatted about the old days of cutting grass in the fields. It was that freezing winter years ago when nobody believed in the older brother's cosmetics, except for one young guy who casually sat down and filled out a partnership application. That was what made their relationship grow, being both brothers and colleagues in the business world now. However, that night when he got home, Minho was totally exhausted and just wanted to lean on Jin to be vulnerable for a minute. While sitting Minho back down on the chair, he complainingly asked why Jin kept calling him Minho. She curiously asked why he had that name and that Matthew nickname. Minho started remembering that freezing winter. Back then, he felt like he had no purpose in life or the mood to do anything. The only person was a little girl named Som-yi who frequently dropped by to keep him company and chat, and occasionally brought him small bottles of water, hoping he could live better. Back then, everyone called Minho a fool. But I know you have a secret, and you can tell me. A little girl who was affected by substandard cosmetics didn't look down on Minho. He said if it weren't for that girl's encouragement, he wouldn't have known what else to do. The next day, Eric and his secretary brother met up as if they were preparing for some secret mission. But in reality, it was to exchange information about the fact that Minho just signed a supply contract with another partner. And Minho's mushroom garden was the key for Eric's perfume in France to develop. Meanwhile, Jin was at home doing heavy makeup when she received a message from Minho. "Let's go to a hotel together." Because she was so shocked by the sudden invitation, Jin went to the office and told her colleague everything. The sister was also so shocked that she screamed it out so the whole company could hear. Yup, a private secret became public through the words of a good friend. Plus, this sister even warned her carefully that going to a hotel together is a battlefield of love. You all will have to prepare thoroughly, otherwise you all will be a total failure. Hearing that, Jin thought this would be a piece of cake. But after eating a whole protein bar, she still didn't know what to choose for the hotel date tomorrow. So she made an appointment at a jewelry store for a consultation. "Which item in your shop can make me look like a magnetic lead girl in a romance drama? Bring it out for me." The result was her wearing an outfit that was both modest and attractive. Jin danced around and tucked her hair back, intentionally trying to let Minho see the necklace she just bought. For some reason, the guy didn't get the hint and thought something was bothering her. He totally deserves to be ignored all day for that. By the time they went to check into the hotel, Jin was still super excited because she was about to have some private time with her boyfriend. Who would have thought the receptionist would hand over 4 room cards for nearby rooms at once? It turned out Minho had invited the entire village to the luxury resort for a getaway instead of the private, romantic date for 2 that Jin had been hoping for. That night, Jin also had a broadcast. She was selling high-end products like elegant, handmade vests that were stretchy and wouldn't rip easily. During the sales session, the ladies from Minho's village were amazed, saying, "Wow, this girl is something else. She's both pretty and really talented." Once the broadcast was over, Jin was pretty salty and went to see Minho to say, "Thanks for giving everyone that hotel vacation package, huh?" Minho could tell his rebellious girlfriend was trying to be mad, but he had an even bigger surprise. He told Jin that their date was actually just beginning right now. Jin had been acting all pouts a moment ago, but once her boyfriend led her around the city and they ate sweets together, she turned into a total sweetheart again. They say good kids get candy, especially the dog food type of PDA they were feeding the librarian guy at the library. Seriously, the guy was already working the night shift, and then he had to deal with them shoving their love in his face. After their kiss in the library, Minho asked Jin, "Do you feel any better now?" Jin, being so happy to have some private date time, couldn't hide her joy and told Minho, "I wasn't even mad." Minho only let everyone travel and relax for a little bit today, because tomorrow he was taking everyone back to Deokbung village. Jin praised him, saying he really knows how to carry everything on his own, which is why his shoulders are wide enough for her to lean on. Speaking of which, Jin recalled that she had only seen Minho smile brightly exactly once, and that was in the photo he took with his brothers. So to keep that handsome smile going, Jin hoped Minho could lean on her small shoulders too. She wanted the two of them to share things and rely on each other more. The next day, Minho got the ladies back to Deokbung village safely. The neighbor lady was incredibly grateful to him because thanks to him, she had a trip to remember. While they were at it, she asked Minho to help settle things between the two sisters, Jinji and Samyi, because those two didn't seem to be at peace at all. The younger sister, Samyi, was being rebellious and only wanted to stay with Minho, while the older sister just ignored her and pulled her suitcase home alone. That's how Jinji acted in front of her sister, but she still turned her head back to look at those two. As she slowly walked home, she felt a bit of a sting in her heart. Once they got home, Minho finally found out why the sisters were fighting. Yesterday at the hotel, Samyi's sister had forbidden her from eating at the buffet counter, so the younger girl didn't get to enjoy the good food. It was probably because of the girl's illness that her sister didn't want Samyi to run into any problems. Once Samyi fell back asleep, Minho quietly took the sister aside to talk and let Jin know what was happening. However, before leaving, Jinji paid the rent and said this would be her last month staying there. Next month, Jinji decided to take her younger sister to Seoul to live. She wanted to take her sister to a bigger hospital with more modern equipment, so the girl wouldn't have to live in misery anymore. However, the two of them didn't know that Samyi had woken up and accidentally overheard the entire conversation. That night, Jinji frantically called Minho to tell him that Samyi had run away and gone missing. He immediately informed everyone in the village. Thanks to the guy in the broadcasting room, the whole village was notified that little Samyi was missing. In the end, everyone split up to search everywhere. Finally, Minho found the little girl at a spot that was familiar from before. It was the place where the little girl had once come to comfort him. She ran away because she was worried Minho would abandon the two sisters, just like their parents had done. Minho immediately burst into tears and promised the little girl that he wouldn't disappear. He told her that even when she goes to high school and college, he'll still be right here. Jin also cried and told everyone that she probably shouldn't have brought her sister here just to make her miserable. When Minho brought Samyi back, the little girl asked her sister if they couldn't just keep living here. Seeing her teary-eyed sister pleading, Jinji finally softened her heart and reconsidered whether or not to move to Seoul. The next day, Minho and Jin went to visit the laboratory, talking about how he was getting ready to start the pilot production of cosmetics once again. The nightmare from the past had once caused Minho to fail, but now he wanted to try his hand at it one more time, hoping everything would be perfect. However, the two of them didn't know that Minho's partners were already preparing to backstab him with a very painful blow once again. Will Minho's dream come true or not? The lovebirds Minho and Jin are totally buried in work, each doing their own thing. But Jin isn't doing much work. She's doing a whole lot of staring at her man. Seeing her human camera eyes fixed on him so intensely, Minho playfully writes a sticky note to tease his girlfriend, basically saying her beauty is wrecking his focus. Getting that top-tier flirt, Jin smiles so hard her eyes nearly disappear. A few hours later, Jin wakes up from her daydream, while Minho is still grinding away. Jin decides to lay down the law, announcing that from now on, she'll only take one sleeping pill a day, and then she proactively swallows one right in front of him. Seeing this, Minho carries her to bed, throws in a bonus full body massage, and then sprawls out beside her. The romantic guy tells Jin to imagine she's a squishy jellyfish, just floating around. Jin bursts out laughing, asking why on earth he's making her be a jellyfish, and then playfully talks back to every word he says. But teasing too much leads to a side story. Jin keeps scooting closer, and with her beauty exploding at such a close range, Minho can't help himself and locks lips with her. The next morning, Jin goes to a coffee shop to catch up with two coworkers and brags about the news that she's about to make a comeback as a shopping host on TV. Needless to say, after hearing it, the two coworkers are as stoked as if they just won the lottery. Over at the research lab, Minho just finished a new skincare formula and brags to director Kang that this stuff boosts skin recovery by 50%. Right at that moment, Jung-ho shows up out of nowhere. Director Kang honestly brags about getting ready to drop this masterpiece on the market. His inner businessman kicking in, Jung-ho immediately suggests a crazy high price to snatch everyone's money. Of course, Director Kang shakes his head no instantly, because he doesn't like the idea of scamming customers. Jung-ho makes a face and mumbles, criticizing Director Kang for doing business but always acting like he hates money, saying he'd end up broke. Minho asks Jean out to a restaurant. He doesn't have a gift, but instead he hands her a detailed folder on the new cream and asks her to be the face of the brand. Jean flips through the documents, feeling completely overwhelmed with happiness. Time flies by, and everyone is busy as hell. During a boardroom meeting that's as tense as a guitar string, Jean suddenly speaks up and criticizes the new cream's scent for being a bit weird, demanding they add some fragrance to make it sexy. Minho firmly defends his raw cream ideal, 100% natural, take it or leave it. Disagreeing on the vision, the two have a heated war of words and then both storm out in a huff. Sung-mi sees the explosion and gets super nervous, fearing this drama will wreck the upcoming broadcast, so she sneaks out to spy on them. To her surprise, when she gets out there, she sees a whole basket of lovey-dovey vibes. It looks like Jin and Minho intentionally did that just to get some alone time. Not long after, Minho carries a jar of the cream to give to Som-yi to try out and asks the little girl to give it a name. The clever Som-yi settles on the name Nuri, which means world. After hearing it, Minho thinks it sounds super legit and locks in the name. Then he takes Jin to see the final product. The second she sees the Nuri cream label, Jin is so moved she lunges in for a huge hug. Minho takes the chance to flex, saying that as long as he has her by his side, he can handle anything. The next day, Jin takes the samples to present to the PD director and successfully gets the permit to go on TV. The whole team is as happy as a festival, dragging each other out for a rowdy celebration. While Jin is out for a jog, she runs into Eric. Just then, a huge rainstorm hits, so the two have to rush under a porch for temporary shelter. Jin teases Eric, asking if he's a rain magnet, because whenever he shows up, there's a storm. At this point, Eric looks at Jin thoughtfully and asks why she was so heartless to stand him up back then. Flashback to 5 years ago. It turns out back then, Jin was dancing around and getting all dolled up for their date, super excited. But before leaving, she accidentally swallowed the wrong pill from her new sleeping meds. The super strong side effect made her pass out and sleep like the dead until late at night. When she woke up and sprinted to the coffee shop in a panic, Eric had vanished a long time ago. After telling that disaster story, the two clear up the misunderstanding, looking at each other and reminiscing about the old days, confirming that their time together will always be a wonderful youth they can never forget. Back at the office, Jin's manager announces that out of 500 applicants, they've closed the list with 30 lucky people to receive Nuri cream samples for feedback before the big broadcast. In another twist, the she-devil boss caught the assistant sneaking around with Eric to leak business secrets. Needless to say, the assistant got worked over big time. Eric heard the news and rushed over in a panic. While in a total wreck, Jang-ho secretly slipped a memory card into Eric's hand and whispered that all the fatal evidence was on it. But the storm still wouldn't let up. Minho is scrolling through the web when he sees a post from some internet idol crying and accusing the cream of having side effects that ruined her face. Jin is also restless when she sees this negative news. The Blackwater troll army won't let go, dropping a bunch of malicious headlines. The person behind the old scandal is back to their old tricks, cooking up toxic cream to scam the public. The massive scandal explodes, leaving the online community beyond furious. A mob of people come swarming into Dokbung town, demanding to level Minho's house. He just gets back to his door, and before he can even figure out what's going on, he gets a shove from an auntie in the crowd. The auntie is fuming and screams in his face, yelling that because of his mess 5 years ago, his director friend had to die, and now how much longer is he going to keep ruining everyone's lives? At the Golden OK Bio headquarters, the place looks like a war zone because extremists came and trashed it. Director Kong can only gloomily clean up the ruins. The most heartbreaking part is that the villagers, who are usually sweet as can be, have also jumped on the bandwagon and turned on Minho. Right in the heat of the moment, Songhua bravely steps out to act as a human shield for him. She turns on her mama bear mode and gives the mob a piece of her mind, basically saying Minho has spent his youth doing so many good things for this village, and she sees him as no different from her own son, so she forbids anyone from touching him. It turns out Songhua's real son logged out in a tragic accident many years ago. In the middle of her grief, she happened to save Minho when he was breaking down and wanted to leave this world. From that fateful moment, she nurtured and loved him to make up for her loss. Hearing Songhwa's heartfelt words, the protesting mob was also moved to tears and automatically cooled down. Songhwa caught senior Jinji sneaking around with Chung-ho. He praised her for successfully leaking the guinea pig list of Nuri Cream testers. Then, despite her begging that her mission here was finished and they could go their separate ways, Chung-ho gave a shady smile, blocked the door, and declared that the game had only just begun. Eric met with Min-ho and director Kang to show an all-inclusive video exposing the crimes of the dark duo, Chung-ho and his sister. Eric told the two of them to use their own IQ to piece together why they were playing games to steal the raw materials at any cost, then personally confessed that the sister was actually his half-sister from a different mother. She is plotting to expand into the Asian market with a new product line, and of course plans to use Min-ho's raw materials for free. Catching the drift, Min-ho immediately set out to investigate Chung-ho's old business partners. At this point, Min-ho was floored because Chung-ho really was the godfather of sweet-talking scams. The crying customers told on him, saying he didn't just steal data and copy their cream formulas exactly to label them as homemade, but he also played a bait-and-switch game, using fake ingredients while charging sky-high prices. Jin finally got the list of 30 girls who tested the cream, including the queen of the world, who just posted about her skin being ruined online. But even though she called until the phone was hot, it only gave the unavailable message. Feeling like something was wrong, Jin immediately demanded to have the batch of cream tested for integrity. The results came back as follows. The cream was 100% safe, with no flaws or toxins. Right at that moment, Jinji called, ready to act as a witness on her behalf. Not wasting any time, Jin immediately went live to shut down the scandal. She firmly declared the cream was completely safe and showed the quality certification papers right then and there. Meanwhile, Songhwa met the female senior face-to-face to lay all the cards on the table. Knowing the senior's weak spot was her secret daughter, Songhwa played a psychological game and forced her to tell the truth. Immediately after, as everyone at the office was getting ready to leave, the senior suddenly appeared and blocked the way, saying she had secret information to report. She confessed to Jin that she was being blackmailed by that jerk, who threatened to expose her secret love child, which is why she was extorted into being a henchman. Hearing the tragic situation, Jin couldn't hold back her tears of empathy. To make amends, the senior handed over the phone containing evidence to Jin. Min-ho went big and snuck all the way over to Chung-ho's house. He trashed the place looking for stuff and snatched a super suspicious phone. Opening it to check, oh man, a whole basket of shady messages popped out. Having the evidence in hand, Min-ho took the device and rushed straight to Chung-ho, shouting his questions. Having stolen stuff but still acting like the victim, Chung-ho still had the nerve to flat out deny everything. Not wanting to waste words, Min-ho grabbed his collar and threw a straight punch right in his face to wake him up. Not stopping there, Min-ho also turned on a recording provided by the assistant to shut him up for good. Min-ho played a recording that brought back memories of his dirty laundry that was hard to hide. It turned out that last year, this guy had been caught red-handed by Gusu for intentionally changing the ingredients, yet he still stubbornly pinned the blame on Gusu. Even though Gusu was in tears of helplessness, he still begged him to admit the crimes he had committed. Flashback to the past at the Usumi lab. Min-ho always worked in a very healthy environment, where colleagues treated each other like brothers. But now, his brother Gusu has passed away. The cause came from senior Chang-ho, who sold out his teammates for money and destroyed everything. But he didn't even see his mistake. He even thought he was being sidelined when he accidentally overheard a conversation between Gusu and Min-ho that day. Gusu said Chang-ho only cared about market profits and the big picture, whereas for this project, he wanted a meticulous person who could help ensure the product had the best quality. Because of that, Chang-ho believed that everything had turned out this way because Gusu forced him to destroy things. Min-ho didn't feel anything anymore. He just walked out of the building in a daze and ran right into his girl waiting in the lobby. Jin knew he was very frustrated, so she just gently comforted him, which made him suddenly remember what happened last year. He remembered the time when his company was in shambles, and he wandered to the village where he lives now. Seeing him looking so depressed, Jin quickly acted like a steady boyfriend, wanting Min-ho to have a shoulder to lean on. That recent public confession of guilt was also when MC Jinji lost her job completely. Yet her face looked incredibly relieved after all those years of torment. Even those who spoke out to expose the recent moisturizer scandal got hit by karma, including both Chung-ho and Mi-chul, the sister from this mess. To avoid disaster, Mi-chul decided to find a way to deal with the factory manager first. This idea coincidentally matched her younger brothers, so Eric immediately switched to attack mode and doggedly pursued the man from the temple all the way to the church. It got to the point where that manager, even wearing full camouflage and hiding in the woods, was easily found by him. It wasn't until he received the USB evidence about putting toxic microbes into the moisturizer that everything was finally settled. However, she just kept complaining and blaming everything on Eric, claiming that all the misfortune she had to endure were caused by her father's other son. Deep down, she only did these things hoping to be recognized by her father, but she believed that even without a father, he would still be raised properly by his sister. As for Chung-ho, he still didn't want to give up. He kept calling, but Mi-chul turned into a silent ghost. He went crazy and hired thugs to go to Min-ho's mushroom farm to destroy everything. These guys shamelessly kicked over the mushrooms and trashed the place one by one. While the situation was critical, director Mugon appeared, said 2 lines of dialogue, and then got a hit to the head from a thug and took a nap. The director's secretary saw this and immediately called for backup. Suddenly, a cloud of white smoke was sprayed directly into the faces of the thugs, making them back off. It wasn't some vision from heaven, but Minho's neighbors showing up holding tools, ready to send them to the afterlife. The thugs saw they were just ordinary villagers, so they acted superior and charged in. Unexpectedly, the aunties and uncles started fighting back in a very strange way. One person used bug spray, another used a fly swatter, and another used an electric mosquito zapper. Two aunties with curly hair used a rope to trip them and kept pounding on one guy like he was a clove of garlic. All the villagers brought home a very glorious victory. As the thugs were retreating in total shame, the others who didn't join the fight used a truck to block the road and buy time to catch all those idiots at once. Minho was celebrating when he received a weird text from Chung-ho. He felt something was wrong and hurried as fast as he could to find him standing right on the edge of the company's rooftop. Minho tried his best to talk him out of it, not understanding why Chung-ho still hadn't snapped out of it and was just using death to escape the things he caused. Perhaps Minho's words weren't powerful enough, so Chung-ho still decided to step back to reset his life. Hearing the news that her boyfriend almost got into trouble, Jin was finally released by the director to go look for him around the hospital. Seeing her boyfriend acting like he was fine and making a punchable face for a joke, she gave him a left hook that knocked him to the ground. Over at director Mugon's side, because he inhaled too much pesticide, when he woke up, he thought he found the love of his life, but it turned out to be just brotherhood. After the leads recovered from the god-tier punch, they returned to the garden and were suddenly moved to tears seeing the aunties and uncles cleaning up the mess themselves. At the same time that day, the two of them visited Gusu's resting place to tell him that he could rest in peace. Everything was settled thanks to Chung-ho's confession at the police station. After this scandal, Jin became the queen of her company, and at the same time, she scheduled a live stream with her mother to sell products at Minho's farm. After begging and discussing it with her colleagues, Jin invited them all out for drinks to vent their sorrows. In reality, it was just the two girls drinking together. Then they got the urge to challenge each other to see whose boyfriend would pick up the phone first to pay the bill. Mugon and a cafe owner Yoonji seemed a bit closer after the previous incident. To show off to his girl, director Mugon pretended to go to the crew's setup area and offered to help carry stuff. The funny part was that he's always in the lab, not the field, so he fumbled around and couldn't lift anything, making everyone watching feel embarrassed. Unable to watch any longer, the farm manager stepped up, lifted that heavy suitcase, and showed off. He even taunted that Mugon was just a little kid, when the truth was they were both 40 years old. Feeling insulted, these two goofs went to the basketball court together to talk about manhood. For the first few rounds, director Mugon kept scoring points and took the chance to flirt with his crush until she was shy. In the second match, Kwangmo looked down on the director and gave him a head start before hitting a beautiful three-pointer, getting ready to scream his girl's name. When he opened his eyes, the two girls had left a long time ago. Today was also the day of the broadcast to promote Nuri Cream by Jin and her mother, using professional praise and marketing about how gentle it feels on the skin, along with evidence of skin improvement from customers who tested it before. Orders were successfully sold out quickly, ending in total perfection. Everyone at the live shoot was incredibly excited and happy. After the buzz died down, Jin and her mom, Monghua, sat on a tree trunk at the farm to talk. For the first time, Monghua called her daughter's name through tears. She admitted she didn't know how to face Jin during all that time she neglected and hurt the father and daughter. Surprisingly, that late apology was gently accepted by Jin in silence, just like the way her mother used to comfort her when she was little. Returning home, Jin saw the caring notes left for her and felt incredibly regretful about the days she didn't understand her father. Early the next morning, Jin immediately made a date with her dad to go to the market together and then come home for an intimate meal. While eating, she hesitantly asked why her dad didn't ask about her and her mom being on the broadcast together. He just honestly admitted he felt guilty about everything that happened, as if he hadn't been able to protect them both during the worst times. Jin could only feel a lump in her throat, thinking that she had hurt him first. To break the ice, Jin asked a random question about whether the side dishes she made were too salty, since he wasn't eating them. Life seems to be getting better, as Jin's parents are having some close moments together in the kitchen, while her dad teaches her, even though she doesn't really have a talent for cooking. Over with Jin and Minho, they are as restless as ants on a hot stove, so nervous that neither of them dares to read the reviews because they're afraid the product might flop. But surprisingly, the feedback is positive beyond expectations. The director couple and the coffee lady are also doing great. Mugon even helped her get some cool payback on her ex-boyfriend who scammed her wedding money right at a luxury brand store. Kwangmo has even gained some female followers online lately, thanks to his mindless clips. Sung M was green with envy seeing this, but with her help, they successfully got a YouTube silver play button and are determined to get a gold one in the near future. At this point, Eric's part in Korea is over, so he and his assistant do one last shoot before heading back to France. While the side couples are having a smooth time, the main couple is still fussing and arguing over the absorption quality of the new Nori product that's about to launch. Neither of them will back down. Seeing this, their coworkers are totally used to it and just do their own work during the shift, letting those two idiots argue it out. As much as they compete, once they get home, the two of them do a total 180 and get all lovey-dovey, chatting all night in their cozy bed, closing out the story with only a fairy tale wedding missing. The movie ends here. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you liked it.